Do you know the most terrifying kind of helplessness? It is when you hear every word, but your body lies still like a door locked from the inside. In the freezing intensive care unit, I heard the pen scratching against paper, and I knew it was an execution order. The doctor said I could recover, but my cruel sister signed anyway. Just as they touched the switch, I opened my eyes, not to beg, but to change the game. My name is Emerson Kennedy. I am 34 years old. I am an architect for the North Shore Design Collective in Ravenport, North Carolina. I design structures meant to withstand hurricanes, earthquakes, and time itself. I understand load-bearing walls. I understand stress points. I understand how to keep a building from collapsing. But right now, I cannot even lift my own eyelid. I am a prisoner inside a statue made of meat and bone. The darkness is absolute. It is not the darkness of sleep. It is the heavy, suffocating darkness of a coffin lid nailed shut. The only thing that tells me I am still alive is the sound. Beep, beep, beep. The cardiac monitor is a metronome counting down the seconds of my life. The rhythm is steady, mocking me with its mechanical indifference. I can hear the ventilator. Hiss, click, whoosh. It forces air into my lungs, expanding my chest when my body refuses to do it alone. It is a violent intrusion. A plastic tube snakes down my throat, dry and scratching against my windpipe. I want to gag. I want to cough. I want to scream. I can do none of these things. My brain is screaming. It is shouting commands to my limbs. Move the right index finger. Wiggle the left toe. Twitch the nose. Nothing happens. The signal travels down the spine and dies in the dark. I am disconnected. Then comes the smell. Sharp antiseptic, floor wax, the faint metallic tang of blood, and underneath it all, a perfume I know too well. It is expensive, floral, and cloying. It smells like crushed gardenias and old money. It is Brielle. It is time, doctor, her voice says. It comes from somewhere above my right shoulder. Her tone is steady, laced with a rehearsed sorrow that would fool anyone who does not know her. We have dragged this out long enough. It is cruel to keep her like this. Ms. Kennedy, please, a man's voice replies. It is deep, tired, and hesitant. That must be Dr. Rowan Pierce. I have heard him checking my vitals for the last 2 days. Or has it been 2 weeks? Time is a blur in the dark. Emerson is stable. Her vitals are holding. We are seeing some fluctuations in her EEG that suggest cortical activity. It is not a flatline. She is in there somewhere. She is suffering, Brielle snaps. The mask slips for a fraction of a second, revealing the jagged edge of her impatience. She composes herself quickly. Look at her. Look at my little sister. She was so vibrant. She was a creator. She would hate this. She would hate being a vegetable hooked up to machines. We discussed this, years ago. She told me she never wanted to be kept alive artificially. Liar. The word screams in my head. Liar, liar, liar. We never had that conversation. I value life. I fight for every inch. I design buildings to save lives, not to end them. Brielle is rewriting my history in real time. Did she have a living will? Doctor, Pierce asks. Or a medical directive? Because without it, the protocol is clear. We wait. I am her closest living relative, Brielle says. I can hear the rustle of paper. And I have the power of attorney paperwork right here. My lawyer sent it over an hour ago. It grants me full medical custody in the event of incapacitation. Check the date. It is legal. It is binding. The rustling sound is deafening. It sounds like dry leaves skittering across a grave. It sounds like a blade being sharpened against a stone. This gives you the authority. Doctor, Pierce admits slowly, but having the authority and using it are two different things. We typically wait at least 7 days for swelling to subside before making a determination on brain death. It has been 48 hours since the fall. The fall, Brielle echoes. Her voice is soft now, trembling with fake tears. God, the fall. I see it every time I close my eyes. She slipped. It was just a tragic accident, but the damage is done. Doctor, You told me yourself the spinal trauma is severe. Why prolong the inevitable? Why make me watch her wither away? It is inhumane. I feel a hand touch my arm. It is warm. It is likely the doctor. He is checking my pulse manually. I can feel a tremor. Doctor, Pierce says. It is a spasm. Brielle cuts in sharply. The nurses said so. Post-traumatic reflexes. Do not give me false hope, doctor. It is cruel. I am not sure, Pierce murmurs. I am sure, Brielle says. Her voice drops an octave. It becomes cold steel. My lawyer is on the phone right now. He is ready to file a negligence suit if you continue to treat a corpse against the wishes of the legal guardian. Do you want Ravenport Regional to be dragged through the mud? Do you want to explain to the board why you are wasting resources on a hopeless case? Silence. The only sound is the machine. Hiss. Click. Whoosh. I need to move. I need to break the lock. I focus everything on my eyes. They feel like they are glued shut with concrete. I visualize the muscles of my eyelids. I am an architect. I know how things open. I know the mechanics of leverage. Lift, pull, open. Fine, doctor, Pierce says. The defeat in his voice crashes over me like ice water. If the paperwork is in order, we will proceed with compassionate extubation. Thank you, Brielle says. Thank you for letting her go. I hear the uncapping of a pen. Click. The sound of the pen tip hitting the paper is the loudest thing in the world. Scritch, scratch, a loop for the B, a sharp line for the K. She is signing my death warrant. She is doing it with the same casual speed she uses to sign a credit card receipt for a pair of shoes she cannot afford. Mara. Doctor, Pierce calls out. Prepare the extubation kit. Turn off the alarms. Yes, doctor, a woman's voice replies. Mara Collins, the head nurse. She sounds disapproving, stiff. She does not like this, but she follows orders. I feel the change in the air. People are moving closer. The presence of death is heavy in the room. I will do it, doctor, Pierce says. I need to verify the settings first. I feel his hand move away from my arm. I hear his footsteps move toward the head of the bed, toward the machine that breathes for me. The panic is a physical thing now. It is a fire in my chest. If he turns that switch, I die. I suffocate in the dark while Brielle watches. She will inherit the trust fund. She will sell the house. She will bury the truth along with my body. No, the anger hits me harder than the fear. It is a white-hot bolt of rage. How dare she? How dare she use my life to pay her debts? I gather every ounce of energy I have left. I pull it from my frozen toes, from my numb fingers, from the deep recesses of my mind where the survival instinct hides. I channel it all into the tiny muscles surrounding my eyes. Open. It feels like tearing stitched skin apart. The resistance is immense. Open. My lashes flutter. A crack of light pierces the darkness. It is blindingly bright. It burns. Wait, Mara says. Doctor, wait. What is it? Pierce asks. I push harder. The light expands. The blur of the room rushes in. White ceiling tiles, chrome bars, a face leaning over me. I snap my eyes open. The room goes dead silent. The hiss click of the ventilator seems to pause in shock. I am staring straight up. Doctor. Pierce is freezing, his hand hovering inches from the power switch of the ventilator. His eyes are wide, caught in a moment of absolute disbelief. I shift my gaze. To the right, Brielle is standing there. She is wearing a black dress, appropriate for a grieving sister. Her hand is still clutching the pen. Her face goes slack. All the color drains out of it, leaving her looking like a wax doll melting under heat. She drops the pen. It clatters on the linoleum floor. I have to speak. The tube is in my way. My throat is raw sandpaper. My tongue feels like a heavy slug that does not belong to me. But I have one shot, one chance before she claims it is a reflex. One chance before she claims I am delirious. I fight the gag reflex. I force air past the plastic obstruction. Living room. The sound is hideous. It is a wet, gurgling, raspy whisper. It sounds like grinding gravel, but it is human speech. Doctor. Pierce leans down instantly, his ear close to my lips. Emerson, can you hear me? I ignore him. I lock eyes with Brielle. I want her to see me. I want her to know that I know. Vent, I croak out. Every syllable is agony. Living room vent. Memory card. Red. Tape. The words hang in the air like smoke. Doctor. Pierce jerks back as if he has been burned. He looks at me, then at Brielle. The confusion on his face is rapidly replaced by a dawning realization. He is a doctor, but he is not stupid. He heard the specificity. Reflexes do not give directions. Spasms do not describe hidden objects. Brielle recovers. The panic flashes in her eyes, wild and feral, but she tries to stomp it down. Oh my God, she gasps, pressing a hand to her chest. She is seizing. It is a seizure. Right, doctor? You said this could happen. The brain is misfiring. She takes a step toward the bed. Her hand reaches out, not to comfort, but to silence. She wants to touch me. She wants to squeeze my hand, perhaps a little too hard. Do not touch her. Doctor, Pierce commands. His voice is different now. The hesitation is gone. It is the voice of a man taking control of his ship. He pulls his hand back from the ventilator completely. He steps between me and Brielle, a human shield. Mara, Pierce barks. Lock the panel. No one touches this machine. No one. Done, Mara says. She is already moving to the other side of the bed, her body blocking Brielle's path. Her face is set in stone. She heard me too. She is in distress, Brielle shrieks. Her voice cracks. Look at her. She is hallucinating. She is talking nonsense about vents and tape. She is in pain. Why are you letting her suffer? Brielle lunges forward, grabbing the bed rail. I have the power of attorney. I am telling you to help her. Security, Mara yells. She does not press the button. She yells it with her own voice, loud enough to rattle the glass partitions. Get away from the patient. Doctor, Pierce says. He is tall, and he looms over Brielle. Ms. Kennedy, step back. Now. You are violating my rights, Brielle screams. She looks at the papers on the side table. Her eyes dart to them, then to me, then to the door. She realizes she has made a mistake. She realizes the papers are evidence of her intent. She reaches for them. Leave the papers, Pierce warns. They are mine, Brielle snarls. She snatches the clipboard. Code Gray, ICU bed 4. Mara shouts into the intercom on the wall. Code Gray, security assist, combative person. The doors to the ICU burst open. 2 uniformed guards rush in. The commotion is loud, chaotic, but to me, it sounds like a symphony. I am still trapped in my body, my chest heaving against the rhythm of the machine, but I am no longer helpless. I watch Brielle back away. She is breathing hard. Her eyes are darting around like a trapped animal. She looks at me one last time. There is no love in that look. There is only pure, distilled hatred. She knows I have beaten her. She knows the timeline has shifted. It is just a reaction, Brielle insists to the guards as they flank her. She smooths her dress, trying to regain the facade of the grieving sister. She is confused. I am just trying to do what is best for her. Escort Miss Kennedy to the waiting room. Doctor, Pierce orders, do not let her leave the hospital, and do not let her back in this room. You cannot do this, Brielle shouts as they guide her out. I will sue you. I will sue this entire hospital. The doors swing shut. The silence returns. But it is different now. It is charged. It is electric. Doctor. Pierce turns back to me. His hands are trembling slightly. He looks at my eyes, which are still wide open, still fixed on him. I heard you, Emerson, he whispers. Living room vent, memory card, red tape. I blink once. Yes. He exhales a long breath he must have been holding for minutes. He looks at Mara. Get the admin on the line, Pierce says. Tell them we have a legal situation. And Mara? Yes, doctor? Call the police, Pierce says grimly. Specifically Detective Lila Grant at the Seabrook County Precinct. Tell her I have a patient who just woke up from a coma with a statement regarding a crime scene. He looks down at me, his expression softening. And tell her she needs to get a squad car to the Kennedy residence immediately, tonight, right now, before anyone else gets there. I stare at the ceiling tiles. I can feel the rhythm of my heart. Beep, beep, beep. It is no longer a countdown to death. It is the drumbeat of war. Brielle thought she could erase me with a signature. She thought I was a broken doll she could throw away. She forgot who I am. She forgot that I design foundations. She forgot that I know where the bodies are buried because I am the one who built the basement. The game is on, sister, and I have the first move. To understand why I ended up in that hospital bed with a tube down my throat, you have to go back 4 years. You have to go back to the day the rain did not stop falling. The day 2 state troopers knocked on the heavy oak door of our family home to tell us that our parents were never coming back. Hydroplaning, that was the word they used. A simple loss of traction on a wet highway that erased the 2 pillars of our world in a fraction of a second. The grief was a heavy, wet blanket that suffocated everything. But the real storm arrived 2 weeks later in the lawyer's office. Our parents knew us. They knew me, Emerson, the steady one, the builder, the one who measured twice and cut once, and they knew Brielle. They knew my older sister was a wildfire wrapped in silk. She was beautiful, charismatic, and utterly incapable of delayed gratification. If Brielle had $10, she spent $20. If she had a credit limit, she treated it like a target. So, when the will was read, it did not just leave us money, it left us a structure. The estate, including the sprawling Victorian house by the bay in Ravenport, and a substantial liquid asset portfolio, was placed into the Kennedy Family Trust. The terms were ironclad. I was named the sole trustee. Brielle was the beneficiary, entitled to a generous monthly allowance and coverage for essential needs. But she had zero access to the principal capital. She could not touch the core millions. She could not leverage the house. She could not drain the accounts to fund her latest whim. I remember the silence in that mahogany-paneled office when the attorney finished reading. It was thick enough to choke on. Brielle did not scream. Not then. She just turned to me, her eyes dry and hard as flint. She looked at me not as a sister who shared her loss, but as a jailer who held the keys to her freedom. "You stole it," she whispered. I tried to explain. I told her it was for our protection. I told her I would never deny her anything she actually needed. I told her I wanted to preserve the legacy so we could pass it down. But she only heard one thing. She heard that I was the parent now, and she was the child. Over the next 3 years, that resentment festered like black mold behind wallpaper. You could not always see it, but you could smell it. Every time I had to approve a check for her rent, because she had spent her allowance on a trip to Tulum. Every time I had to decline a request for a luxury car lease. The rot spread a little further. She started twisting the narrative. To our friends, to our extended family. I became the villain. I was the greedy little sister hoarding the gold. I was the control freak enjoying the power trip. Then came Gavin Holt. He appeared 6 months ago, like a shark surfacing in a quiet lagoon. Brielle brought him to the house for dinner, introducing him as an investment banker from Charlotte. He was handsome in a way that felt manufactured. His suit was tailored to within an inch of its life. His teeth were blindingly white. His handshake was firm, dry, and practiced. He looked like the photo that comes inside a new picture frame. I did not trust him from the moment he stepped onto the porch. Architects have an instinct for structural integrity. We know when a foundation is solid and when it is just a facade hiding dry rot. Gavin Holt felt like a facade. He smiled too much with his mouth, and never enough with his eyes. But Brielle was radiant. She clung to his arm, looking at him as if he were the sun, and she was a cold planet desperate for warmth. The pitch happened over dessert. We were sitting in the dining room, the one with the view of the bay where the moonlight hit the water, the house was in a state of partial renovation. I was restoring the original crown molding and updating the HVAC system, so there were drop cloths in the corners and the smell of sawdust lingering in the air. Gavin cleared his throat and placed a leather portfolio on the table. He did not open it immediately. He let it sit there, heavy with promise. "Emerson," he said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. "Brielle tells me you have been getting a pathetic return on the Trust's treasury bonds. 2%? 3%? In this market, that is essentially losing money to inflation." I took a sip of water. I am comfortable with conservative growth. I said, "The goal is preservation, not gambling." Gavin laughed. It was a dismissive sound, meant to make me feel small and uneducated. "There is a difference between gambling and seizing an opportunity," he said. "I am putting together a syndicate for a luxury eco-resort down in the Keys. It is called the Azure. We are in the final round of capital raising. I have held a spot for the Kennedy Trust because I care about Brielle, and I want to see her family thrive." He slid the portfolio across the table. I opened it. The brochure was glossy, filled with computer-generated renderings of glass villas suspended over turquoise water. The numbers were staggering. He was projecting a 20% return in the first year. He wanted an initial buy-in of $500,000 from the trust principal. "It is a no-brainer." Brielle said. Her voice was tight, high-pitched. She was leaning forward, her knuckles white as she gripped the stem of her wineglass. "Gavin says we could double the principal in 5 years. Do you know what that means? We could both be free. I could finally start my own boutique. You could quit your firm and design whatever you want." I looked at the papers. I looked at the legal disclaimers in the fine print, which were surprisingly sparse. I looked at Gavin, who was watching me with the predatory patience of a man who has played this hand 100 times. "I will look into it," I said. The next day, I did not go to the construction site. I went to my office and I started digging. I pulled the corporate filings for the development company listed in the brochure. I called a friend who worked in commercial real estate law in Florida. I spent 10 hours cross-referencing names, addresses, and tax IDs. By 5 in the afternoon, the beautiful facade of the Azure had collapsed. The development company was a shell. It had been incorporated 3 months ago in a strip mall mailbox in Delaware. The CEO listed was a man who had been barred by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the early 2000s for penny stock fraud. There were no permits filed for the land in the Keys. In fact, the land coordinates listed in the brochure belonged to a federally protected mangrove reserve where building was strictly prohibited. It was not an investment. It was a theft. I went home that evening with a knot of dread in my stomach. I knew what I had to do, and I knew it was going to be ugly. Brielle and Gavin were waiting for me in the living room. They had opened a bottle of champagne, premature celebration hanging in the air like cheap perfume. "Well?" Brielle asked, jumping up from the sofa. "Did you sign the transfer authorization?" I set my bag down. I did not sit. I needed to be standing for this. "No," I said. The smile dropped from Brielle's face instantly. "What do you mean?" "No." I looked at Gavin. I saw the flicker of annoyance in his eyes, the first crack in his perfect mask. "I did my due diligence," I said calmly. "The land is a protected reserve. The developer has a record for securities fraud. There is no resort. Brielle, there is just a bank account where money goes to die. I am not releasing a single cent of the trust for this." Brielle stared at me. For a moment, she looked confused, looking to Gavin for an explanation. Gavin stood up, buttoning his jacket. "You must be mistaken." "Emerson," he said, his voice dropping the warmth. "My legal team has vetted this thoroughly. You are an architect, not a financial analyst. You are out of your depth. The trust mandate is specific." I countered, "Funds can be released for education, medical emergencies, or the purchase of a primary residence. It strictly forbids speculative investments in unrated entities, even if this was legitimate, which it is not. I could not sign the check without violating our parents' instructions. The answer is no." Gavin looked at Brielle. He did not say anything, but the look spoke volumes. It said, I told you she would be a problem. I told you she stands in the way. Brielle turned on me. The rage that had been simmering for 4 years finally boiled over. You always do this, she screamed. She grabbed the champagne flute from the coffee table and hurled it at the fireplace. It shattered against the brick, glass spraying across the hearth. You do not care about the fraud. You do not care about the land. You just want to control me. You want to keep me on a leash like a child begging for allowance? It is not about control. Brielle, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It is about protecting you from him. He is conning you. He loves me, she shrieked. She marched up to me, her face inches from mine. I could smell the alcohol on her breath. You are jealous. You are a lonely, bitter workaholic who cannot stand to see me happy. You think because you were the good student, because you have the steady job, that you are better than me. But you are not. You are just a thief who stole my inheritance. Gavin placed a hand on her shoulder. Come on, babe, he said softly. Let us go. We do not need to listen to this. We will figure something else out. He looked at me as he guided her toward the door. It was a chilling look. It was devoid of anger. It was purely calculating. He was assessing me as an obstacle that needed to be removed. We will find another way, Gavin said to me. When the door slammed shut, the house felt enormous and terrifyingly empty. I looked at the shattered glass on the hearth. I realized then that the bond between my sister and me was as broken as that flute, but it was what Gavin had said that kept echoing in my mind. We will figure something else out. They needed money. Gavin likely had debts to pay or investors to pay off from previous schemes. Brielle was desperate to keep him. Desperate people do desperate things, and I was the only thing standing between them and a multi-million-dollar portfolio. I did not sleep that night. Instead, I thought about the house. I thought about the renovations. I thought about the contractors who would be coming back next week to finish the ductwork in the central air system. The living room had a large intake vent near the floor, right behind the main entertainment console. It gave a wide-angle view of the entire space, including the dining area and the foyer. The next morning, I bought a high-definition security camera, the kind that is no bigger than a die. It was battery-operated with a motion sensor. I did not mount it on the wall where it could be seen. I waited until the house was empty. I unscrewed the grill of the intake vent. I mounted the camera deep inside the duct, angling it through the slats. I taped the small SD card slot with a piece of red electrical tape to make it visible in the gloom of the duct if I ever had to guide someone to find it in a hurry. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was just being a careful homeowner monitoring the contractors. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was not watching the contractors. I was watching my sister. I was watching the man she brought into our home. I knew Brielle was angry. I knew she was greedy. But as I tightened the screws on that vent cover, I did not yet know that she was capable of watching me die. I thought the worst thing she could do was sue me. I did not realize that when she said I was standing in her way, she meant it in the most literal, terminal sense. The camera blinked once, a tiny red eye in the darkness, and began recording. I hoped it would only ever catch dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. I was wrong. It was about to catch the unraveling of a family. The invitation came 2 days after the shattered glass incident. It was not an apology, at least not directly. It was a text message from Gavin Holt. It was professional, courteous, and completely at odds with the man who had looked at me like I was a termite infestation he needed to fumigate. He wanted my eyes on a property. I know we got off on the wrong foot. The message read, "But Brielle is right. I respect your expertise. I have a line on a warehouse conversion near the docks. Structural shell is intact, but I need an architect to tell me if the zoning retrofit is viable. Just take a look. If you say it is garbage, we walk away. No hard feelings." I should have said no. Every instinct I had, honed over a decade of navigating construction sites, screamed that this was wrong. You do not do business with people who try to steal your family trust. But then Brielle called. She did not scream. She did not cry. She sounded small. She sounded like the little sister I used to braid hair for before our parents died. "Please," She said, I know I messed up. I know Gavin pushed too hard. But he really wants to make this work. He wants to prove to you he is legitimate. Just give him 20 minutes. If you hate it, we are done. I promise. I went because guilt is a heavy cornerstone. I went because, despite everything, I wanted to believe that my sister was not gone forever. I wanted to believe that if I showed her the reality of a bad investment with calm, professional facts, she might finally wake up. I drove my own car. I met them there at 7 in the evening. The location was in the industrial district of Ravenport, a grid of rusting corrugated metal and cracked asphalt where the city met the shipping channel. The air smelled of brine, diesel fuel, and wet rot. The warehouse Gavin had chosen was a hulking brick skeleton from the 1920s, sitting in the shadow of the port cranes that looked like prehistoric birds against the gray sky. Gavin was waiting by the chain-link fence. He was wearing work boots that looked brand new, scuff-free, and a hard hat that sat awkwardly on his head. Brielle was next to him, wrapped in a trench coat, her hands shoved deep into her pockets. Emerson, Gavin said, nodding as I approached. He did not offer a handshake this time. He kept his distance. Thanks for coming. I am here to look at the load-bearing walls and the foundation, I said, keeping my voice flat. That is it. Do not try to sell me a vision. Understood, Gavin said. He unlocked the padlock on the side door. It clicked open with a heavy metallic snap. After you. We stepped inside. The interior was cavernous. The only light came from a few flickering halogen work lamps strung up on temporary cords, casting long, twitching shadows that danced across the peeling paint. The space was vast, empty except for piles of debris and old pallets. The wind whistled through gaps in the high windows, creating a low, mournful moan that sounded like the building was in pain. My architect's brain engaged immediately. I scanned the ceiling trusses. They were timber, dark with age, likely heart pine, solid, but the brickwork showed signs of spalling from years of salt air exposure. The roof needs a complete tear-off, I said, my voice echoing in the emptiness. And you have water intrusion on the north wall. You can see the efflorescence on the brick. That white powder? That is salt pushing through. It means the masonry is compromised. Fixable? Gavin asked. He was walking behind me. Expensive, I corrected. Everything is fixable with enough money, but this is not a cosmetic flip. This is a gut job. There is a mezzanine level, Gavin said, pointing upward. I want to show you the view from up there. That is the selling point. Loft apartments looking out over the water. I looked up. A steel catwalk ran along the perimeter of the second story, about 20 feet up, accessible by a narrow metal staircase. It looked industrial, rusted in spots, but functional. Brielle, Gavin said, stay down here. Watch the door. We do not want any squatters wandering in while we are upstairs. Okay, Brielle said. Her voice was barely a whisper. She did not look at me. She was staring at a puddle of stagnant water on the floor, her face pale in the harsh halogen light. She looked terrified. I should have stopped then. I should have asked why my sister, who usually demanded to be the center of attention, was voluntarily standing guard in a dark warehouse. But I was focused on the job. I was focused on finding the flaw that would let me kill this project legally. Lead the way, I said to Gavin. We climbed the metal stairs. The grating clanged under our feet. Clang, clang, clang. It sounded like a prison door slamming shut, over and over again. When we reached the mezzanine, the air was warmer, trapped against the roof. The view was indeed impressive. If you liked industrial decay and black water, the catwalk was narrow, maybe 3 feet wide, bordered by a waist-high railing made of pipe. The structure seems sound up here, Gavin said. Walking ahead of me, he stopped near the center of the walkway, directly over the concrete floor below. But I'm worried about the railing height. Is it up to code? I walked toward him. I was looking at the floor joists, checking for sag. Current code requires 42 inches, I said. This looks like standard 36-inch industrial. You would need to replace it all. Kick ice. Check this section. Gavin said. He stepped back, gesturing to the span of railing right in front of me. It feels loose. I stepped up to the edge. I reached out to grab the top rail, intending to give it a shake to test the anchor bolts. My hand closed around the cold metal. It was slick. That was the first thing my brain registered. Not rust, not dust, grease, thick, viscous, automotive grease. It had been applied to the underside of the pipe, invisible from above. My hand slipped. It did not just slide. It shot forward with zero friction. My weight was already shifting, leaning into the rail to test it. I expected resistance. I expected the steel to hold me. Instead, the rail swung out. It did not break. It swung. The bolts connecting the horizontal pipe to the vertical stanchion were gone. They had been removed. The entire section was a gate disguised as a fence, held in place by nothing but gravity and a prayer. "Whoops," Gavin said. The word was soft, casual. I pitched forward. My center of gravity passed the point of no return. My feet scrambled on the metal grating, searching for traction. But the forward momentum was too great. I fell. The fall lasted a lifetime. I had time to think about the physics of it. I had time to calculate the velocity, 32 feet per second squared. I had time to see the concrete floor rushing up to meet me like a gray wall. I had time to realize that this was not a mistake. I did not scream. The air was sucked out of me before I could make a sound. Crack! The sound of my body hitting the concrete was wet and awful. It sounded like a watermelon being dropped from a roof. Pain is usually described as hot or sharp. This was neither. This was a white flash that erased the world. It started in my spine and exploded outward, blowing out the lights in my vision. Then, silence. I was lying on my back. I must have bounced or rolled. I was staring up at the high ceiling trusses. The flickering halogen light was spinning. I tried to inhale. My chest did not move. It felt like a car was parked on my ribcage. My lungs were collapsed bags of wet paper. I tried to gasp, but only a gurgle of blood came up. I tried to push myself up. My arms did not move. My legs did not move. Panic, cold and absolute, flooded my brain. I was disconnected. The wires were cut. I could see the catwalk above. The section of railing was swinging gently back and forth, a pendulum marking the site of the murder. A face appeared over the edge. Gavin. He looked down at me. He was not panicked. He was not reaching for his phone. He was just watching, clinical and detached. Then, footsteps. Slow, hesitant footsteps approaching on the concrete floor. Brielle walked into my field of vision. She stood over me. She looked down, her hands trembling by her sides. "Help," I tried to say. The word was a bubble of blood that popped on my lips. Brielle looked up at Gavin. "Is she?" Brielle started. "Not yet," Gavin called down. His voice echoed. "Wait, wait." He was telling her to let me die. He was telling her to let the internal bleeding finish the job. "Gavin, she is looking at me," Brielle whispered. She sounded horrified. But she did not move. She did not kneel. She did not take her phone out. "Let her look," Gavin said. He was coming down the stairs now. Clang, 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 taking his time. He reached the bottom and walked over to me. He crouched down, careful not to get blood on his boots. He leaned in close. "You should have signed the check. Emerson," he said. "It would have been so much easier." I stared at him. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to rip his throat out, but I could not even blink. "Okay," Gavin said, checking his watch. "That is 5 minutes. The spinal shock should be setting in. You can make the call now." "I cannot," Brielle sobbed. "I cannot do it." "Do it," Gavin hissed. "Dial 911. Tell them she slipped. Tell them she was leaning over to check a bolt and lost her balance. You screamed? You ran to her. Make it convincing." Brielle pulled her phone out. Her fingers were shaking so bad she dropped it once. She picked it up. 911, she whispered. "My sister. She fell. Please, hurry." The performance began. She started wailing, loud, theatrical sobs that echoed in the empty warehouse. "Oh God, Emerson, stay with me. Help is coming." Gavin stood up. He looked around. He wiped the railing above with a rag he pulled from his pocket. I could see him do it in my mind. Or maybe I had seen him do it before he came down. He was cleaning the scene. "I am leaving," Gavin said. "I was never here. You came alone to check the site. I gave you the keys earlier." "Gavin, do not leave me," Brielle pleaded. "Stick to the script," he said, and then he was gone. I heard the side door click shut. I was alone with my sister. The sister who had just watched me fall 20 feet and waited 5 minutes to call for help. The sirens came quickly. I could hear them in the distance. Getting louder, my vision was tunneling. The gray edges were creeping in, turning the world into a narrow straw. The pain was receding, replaced by a terrifying numbness. The cold was setting in. Paramedics burst through the door. Noise, light, chaos. "Trauma code. Fall from height. Collar on. Backboard. Pupils are sluggish. Airway is compromised. Intubate." Hands were everywhere, cutting my clothes, sticking needles in my arms. A mask was shoved over my face, forcing air into my burning lungs. Brielle was hovering on the periphery. Being held back by a police officer, she was still crying, still playing the role. "It was an accident," she was sobbing. "She just slipped. I tried to grab her." As they lifted the stretcher, the world tilted. I saw Brielle one last time. She had stopped crying for a split second. She was on her phone again, holding it close to her face. I heard her. It was over the noise of the radios and the shouting medics. But I heard her. "He is gone," she whispered into the phone. "She is in bad shape. Now we just need the papers right." Then the doors of the ambulance slammed shut, and the darkness took me. I woke up, or I thought I woke up, in the ICU. It was a blur of lights and beeping. I was floating in a chemical fog. "Doctor." Pierce was there. He was looking at a clipboard. He looked confused. "That is odd," he muttered to the nurse standing next to him. "What is it, doctor?" "Her file," Pierce said. He tapped the screen of the tablet he was holding. "The admission intake form. It was updated 10 minutes before the ambulance even arrived at the ER." "Updated with what?" "A notation about a pre-existing directive," Pierce said, frowning. "It says the family requested non-aggressive measures in case of catastrophic injury." "Who put that in the system before she was even triaged?" "Maybe the sister called it in," the nurse suggested. "Maybe," Pierce said. He looked at me. I could not move. I could not speak. But I heard him. "But how did she know the injury was catastrophic before we even took x-rays?" He set the tablet down. "Keep a close eye on this one. Mara," he said. "Something does not add up." He walked away. I lay there in the cold. Sterile light. They had tried to kill me. They had failed. But now, the second phase of the plan was in motion. They were not going to finish me with a weapon. They were going to finish me with paperwork. They were going to bury me under a mountain of legal forms and medical directives until I stopped breathing. But they made a mistake. They thought I was just a building they could demolish. They forgot that the strongest structures are the ones that are built to survive the storm. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to think, to plan, to wait. The war had started, and I was the only one who knew the enemy was already inside the gates. The timeline of a murder is rarely a straight line. It is a series of overlapping circles, of bureaucratic dominoes falling one against the other. I was the center of that circle, the silent eye of the storm. But the hurricane was raging in the administrative corridors of Ravenport Regional Medical Center. It began with the sound of a heavy binder hitting the metal tray table at the foot of my bed. It was not a medical chart. Medical charts have a plastic, hollow slap. This was leather-bound and dense. It sounded like a gavel. I lay there, trapped in the terrifying paralysis that the doctors called a neuroprotective shutdown, but which I knew was a prison. And I listened to my sister construct the cage that would kill me. "These are the original copies," Brielle's voice said. She was pitching her voice to be reasonable, the heartbroken sibling trying to navigate a nightmare, but I could hear the jagged edge of adrenaline underneath. The Medical Power of Attorney and the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Emerson signed them 3 years ago, right after our parents died. She was terrified of lingering. Doctor, terrified of being this. Let me see that. I heard Mara Collins say. There was a pause. The rustle of pages being turned. The quiet hum of the air filtration system seemed to grow louder, amplifying the tension in the room. This signature, Mara said slowly. Her voice was not accusatory, but it was professional, detached, and deeply skeptical. It looks different. She was grieving, Brielle said quickly. Her hand was shaking. We had just buried our parents. No, Mara corrected. I mean, the pressure points are wrong. Emerson has a very specific way of crossing her T's. We have her signature on the admission forms from when she had her appendix out last year. This one loops at the top. The hospital record shows a sharp, architectural strike. And the date? Why is the ink slightly smeared on the year? My heart slammed against my ribs. Good girl. Mara. I wanted to shout it. I wanted to hug her. I remembered that document. I remembered Brielle shoving a stack of papers under my nose about transferring utility bills for the estate. I had signed a dozen things that day. Had she slipped a blank page in? Or had she simply traced it? Are you a forensic handwriting analyst? Nurse Collins? Brielle snapped. The mask of the grieving sister slipped, revealing the cornered animal beneath. Because if you are not, I suggest you stop stalling and look at the notary stamp. It is legal, it is binding, and it gives me the authority to make medical decisions for my sister when she is incapacitated. The paperwork appears to be in order technically. Doctor. Pierce's voice cut in, sounding weary. However, the clinical picture does not support the action you are requesting. Ms. Kennedy, power of attorney is for acting in the patient's best interest, withdrawing life support 48 hours after a traumatic injury, when we are seeing pupil reactivity, is not in her best interest. It borders on negligence. Negligence? Brielle's voice rose an octave. You are the ones being negligent. You are keeping a corpse warm to bill the insurance company. My lawyer, Mr. Sterling, is already drafting a motion. If you do not honor her wishes, my wishes, by the end of the day, we will own this hospital. Let your lawyer call legal, Doctor, Pierce said, his voice hard. Until then, my patient stays on the vent. I heard footsteps retreating, the click-clack of Brielle's heels on the linoleum. She was leaving the room, but she was not leaving the war. I focused on my hearing. Without sight, my world was a map of sounds. I could hear the squeak of rubber soles in the hallway. I could hear the distant chime of the elevator, and because the ICU doors were glass and not soundproof. I could hear Brielle stop just outside my room. She was making a call. I strained every neuron, pushing past the hiss of the ventilator to catch the words. They are pushing back, Brielle whispered. She was angry, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and fear. That nurse is a problem. She is looking at the signature too closely. No, Gavin, listen to me. We do not have time. The doctor said she has pupil reactivity. That means she is in there. She could wake up. I know. I am trying. You need to make sure the house is clean. If she wakes up and talks, just get the paperwork pushed through from the admin side. Call that contact you have in records. Now, before she wakes up fully. Before she wakes up fully. The sentence hung in the air like a guillotine blade. They were not just waiting for me to die. They were racing against my consciousness. While Brielle was conspiring in the hallway, another player had entered the game. I did not know it then. But Detective Lila Grant had been in the hospital for an hour. She had not come for me initially. She had come because a patrol officer had flagged the warehouse incident as suspicious circumstances due to the lack of safety gear on a construction site. But Lila was a hunter, and hunters notice when the wind changes. Later, I would learn what happened in the administrative wing while I lay in that bed. Detective Lila Grant was standing at the nurse's station, looking at the digital log of my file. She was a woman who wore cheap suits and expensive intuition. She had seen Brielle storm out of my room and she had seen the way Mara Collins looked after her. "You are the lead on the Kennedy case?" Lila asked Mara. "I am the charge nurse," Mara replied, her voice guarded. "Who is asking?" Lila flashed her badge. "Detective Grant, Seabrook County. I am curious about the accident report. But right now, I am more curious why the sister of the victim is threatening to sue the hospital to stop saving a life. Usually, families sue to keep the machines on." Mara lowered her voice. "She produced a power of attorney document this morning. It looks off, but the scary part is that it was validated in our system before I even saw the physical copy." "Validated how?" "Electronically," Mara said, pointing to the screen. "See this timestamp?" The document was flagged as verified and active at 8:30 in the morning. Brielle did not walk into my unit until 9. Someone in medical records rubber-stamped this before she even handed it to me. Lila's eyes narrowed. "Where is medical records?" "Basement level, room B14. Lila moved. She did not run. But she walked with a velocity that made people step out of her way. Down in the basement, the air was cooler. The medical records department was a maze of filing cabinets and servers. Lila found the clerk who had logged the entry. She was a young girl, maybe 22, named Sarah. She looked like a deer caught in headlights when Lila slapped her badge on the counter. "Who told you to flag the Kennedy file?" Lila asked. She did not shout. She just leaned in, invading the girl's space. I just processed the queue." Sarah stammered. Her hands were shaking. She was shredding a paperclip with nervous fingers. "Do not lie to me, Sarah," Lila said softly. "I can pull the security footage. I can see who walked in here, or I can pull your phone records and see who called you. If you falsified a medical legal document, that is a felony. That is 5 years in prison. Do you want to go to prison for someone else's crime?" The girl crumbled. It took less than 10 seconds. "He called me," Sarah whispered, tears welling up. "A man. He said he was from the legal department of the insurance firm. He said the file was urgent and that if I did not clear the power of attorney immediately, the hospital would lose the payout. He knew my name. He knew I was on probation for being late. He said he would have me fired." "Did he give a name?" "No, but the number was blocked." "And the woman?" Lila asked. "The sister. Did she come down here?" Sarah nodded. "About 20 minutes ago. She came in to check the status. But she did not just check. She asked to see the physical folder. I turned my back to answer the phone. And when I turned back, she was closing the folder. She looked like she had just put something in, or taken something out. Then she ran out." Lila turned to the security monitor mounted on the wall. "Pull the tape, now!" The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed Brielle Kennedy walking into the records room. It showed Sarah turning away. And then, it showed Brielle reaching into her oversized designer purse, pulling out a single sheet of paper, aged, slightly crumpled, and sliding it into the yellow folder labeled Kennedy. While simultaneously pulling a different sheet out and shoving it into her bag, she was swapping the pages. She was replacing whatever generic form was in there with the forged forgery she had brought. "Freeze it," Lila ordered. She took a photo of the screen with her phone. "Do not touch that folder. Do not let anyone touch it. If that folder moves, you go to jail. Understand?" Sarah nodded, terrified. Lila turned and ran. She did not walk this time. She ran toward the elevators. She knew what was happening upstairs. The sister had planted the proof. Now she was going back to the ICU to execute the sentence. Upstairs, the atmosphere in my room had shifted from tense to volatile. Brielle had returned. She had the confidence of someone who had just fixed the glitch in the plan. "I spoke to administration," Brielle announced. Marching back to my bedside, I could feel the vibration of her footsteps. "They confirmed the document is valid. It is in the system. You have no legal ground to stand on. Dr. Pierce, extubate her, now." "I am waiting for legal to call me back," Pierce said. But his voice was wavering. He was a doctor, not a lawyer. If the system said it was valid, He was risking his license by refusing. "You are not waiting," Brielle hissed. "You are torturing her. Look at the monitors. Her heart rate is spiking. She is in distress." My heart rate was spiking because I was terrified. I was screaming inside my own skull. "Do not let her do it. Please, God, do not let her do it." "Nurse Collins," Brielle barked. "If the doctor is too cowardly to do it, you do it. Turn off the machine." "I take orders from physicians, not family members," Mara said, standing her ground. "Then I will do it myself." Brielle lunged. That was the moment, the chaos. The noise, the feeling of the doctor moving, and then the surge of adrenaline that allowed me to tear my eyelids open. The moment I looked at her, the moment I spoke the words that shattered her world. Living room vent. Memory card. Red tape. But what happened next, after the security guards dragged Brielle out, was the part I did not see. It was the part that turned my survival into a war. Detective Lila Grant stepped off the elevator just as the security team was escorting a screaming Brielle down the hall. Lila did not stop them. She watched Brielle's face. The panic, the sweat, the desperate look she cast back toward my room. Lila walked straight to Dr. Pierce, who was still standing by my bed, looking shaken. "She spoke," Pierce said, looking at the detective. "She woke up and she gave us a location." "I heard the call come over the radio," Lila said. She looked down at me. My eyes were open, blinking sluggishly. I was exhausted, but I was present. Living room vent. Memory card. "She said red tape," Pierce added. "She was very specific." Lila pulled out her radio. She did not use her cell phone. She wanted this on the official channel. "Dispatch. This is Detective Grant. I need a unit to the Kennedy estate at 404 Bayview Drive. Priority 1. Secure the scene. I have probable cause to believe evidence of attempted homicide is on the premises." The radio crackled back. "Copy. Detective. Unit 4 Alpha is 10 minutes out." "10 minutes is too long," Lila muttered. She looked at me. If the sister made a call from the hallway, she wasn't calling a lawyer, she was calling the cleaner. Lila turned to the uniformed officer who had arrived with her. "Get to the house. Lights and sirens. If anyone is in that house, you detain them. If anyone is leaving that driveway, you block them. Go." The officer sprinted out. Lila looked back at me. She leaned in close, her voice low and fierce. "You did good, Emerson," she said. "We have the footage of her swapping the files downstairs. We have the clerk, and now we have your statement. But we need that card." I blinked. "I know." "We are going to get it," Lila promised. "But I have a feeling we are walking into a race that started 4 years ago." She walked to the window of the ICU room. Looking out over the city of Ravenport, the sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the skyline. "Doctor," Lila said without turning around, "put a detail on this door. No one comes in. Not the sister, not a priest, not a flower delivery guy. If Brielle Kennedy comes within 50 feet of this floor, arrest her for harassment." "Understood," Pierce said. I lay there, listening to the fading sirens of the police car rushing toward my home. I visualized the living room. I visualized the vent cover. I visualized the tiny red piece of tape in the darkness of the duct. 10 minutes. Gavin was smart. He was ruthless. And he had a head start. The police were racing to the house, but Gavin knew the layout. I had shown him the blueprints. I had shown him the HVAC schematics when we were discussing renovations. The thought hit me with the force of a physical blow. I told him, months ago, during a dinner where I was trying to be civil. I had complained about the airflow in the living room. I had told him I was doing work on the intake vent. He knew where it was. The sirens wailed in the distance, a mournful cry that felt less like a rescue and more like a eulogy for the truth. Brielle had failed to kill me in the hospital, but out there, in the house my parents built, Gavin was about to murder my only witness. The speakerphone on the bedside table was my only window to the outside world. It was a black plastic box, harsh and utilitarian, but in that moment, It was the most important object in the universe. Doctor. Pierce stood over it, his arms crossed, his face grim. Detective Lila Grant was on the other end, her voice crackling through the static as she stood inside my living room, 5 miles away. "We are at the vent," Lila said. Her voice was tight, professional. "Officer Miller has the screwdriver. We are removing the grill now." I lay perfectly still. The only sound in the ICU was the rhythmic whoosh hiss of the ventilator assisting my breathing. I closed my eyes and pictured it, the heavy brass grill, the 4 Phillips head screws, the accumulation of dust bunnies in the corners. I had installed that vent myself. I knew exactly how many turns it took to loosen the screws. "Screws are out," a male voice said in the background. That must be Miller. "Pulling the cover." A sharp screech of metal on metal echoed through the speaker. I flinched. "Okay," Lila said, shining the light inside. "It is deep. Dust. Cobwebs. Wait." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Please, please be there." "I see it," Lila said. The relief in her voice was palpable. About 6 inches back, taped to the upper duct wall, black SD card, red electrical tape, just like she said. "Doctor." Pierce let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for an hour. He looked at me and nodded. "They found it. Emerson, you did it." I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream with relief. That card held the audio of the dinner where Gavin lied about the land. It held the footage of Brielle discussing the problem of my control. It was the smoking gun. "Bagging it now," Lila said. "Chain of custody started at 8:45 p.m. Miller, get the field reader. I want to know what is on this before we even leave the house." There was a pause. The shuffling of equipment. The beep of a laptop booting up. The silence stretched for a minute. Then 2. It felt like hours. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the perforations. 144 tiles. "Detective?" "Doctor?" Pierce asked, leaning closer to the phone. "Hang on," Lila said. Her tone had changed. The triumph was gone, replaced by a cold, hard confusion. "Run it again." "Miller." "I am running it." "Detective," the male voice said. "It is the same result." "What is wrong?" Pierce asked. "It is empty," Lila said. The words hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. "What do you mean, empty?" Pierce demanded. "She said it was recording. Was the battery dead?" "No," Lila said. Her voice was ice now. "I mean wiped. The directory structure is gone. The partition table is scrubbed. This was not a malfunction. Doctor, someone ran a military-grade deletion program on this card. It is not just blank space. It is all zeros. Someone overwrote the data to make sure it could never be recovered." I felt the blood drain from my face. My monitor began to beep faster. Beep, 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 beep. "Calm down, Emerson," Pierce soothed, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Easy." But I could not calm down. Wiped? That meant someone had been there. That meant they knew. "Detective," Pierce said into the phone. "My patient is becoming agitated. Are you sure?" "I am sure," Lila said. "Miller says the heat signature on the card is cold, but the scratch marks on the contact pins are fresh. Someone plugged this in recently. Very recently." "Who?" Pierce asked. "The sister is here. She has been detained in the waiting room for the last hour." "Not her," Lila said. "Someone else. Miller, go talk to the neighbor, the one on the porch, Mrs. Gable. See if she saw anything." There was another long pause. I could hear the wind blowing through the open door of my house over the phone line. I felt a profound sense of violation. My house, my sanctuary. Someone had walked in, found my secret, and gutted it. "We have a witness." Lila came back on the line a few minutes later. "Mrs. Gable says she saw a car in the driveway last night, around 3 a.m, a dark sedan. She thought it was Emerson coming home late, but she said the person walking up the path was too tall. He was wearing a baseball cap pulled low." "Did he break in?" Pierce asked. "That is the interesting part," Lila said. "I am looking at the smart lock logs right now. There was no forced entry, no broken glass. The front door was opened at 3:12 a.m. using a valid passcode. I knew what was coming. I squeezed my eyes shut. It was the emergency guest code, Lila read. The one labeled Family Backup. Who has that code? Emerson? I could not speak. But I did not need to. Lila answered her own question. Brielle, Lila said. And anyone Brielle gave it to? Gavin. It had to be Gavin. He had been at the dinner table when I set that code up for Brielle years ago, in case she ever lost her keys. He had listened. He had remembered. He came in. Lila reconstructed the scene, her voice sounding like she was pacing the room. He knew exactly where to look. He did not toss the house. The drawers are closed. The paintings are straight. He walked in, went straight to the vent, took the card, wiped it on a laptop, put it back, and left. He wanted us to find it. He wanted us to find a blank card so we would think you were crazy. Emerson, he wanted to gaslight you from a distance. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was not enough to kill me. They wanted to discredit me. They wanted to make sure that even if I woke up, I would have nothing but the ravings of a brain-damaged woman. He thinks he is smart, Lila muttered. He thinks he scrubbed it clean. I lay there, despair washing over me. But then, a flicker of memory sparked in the darkness of my mind. It was a blueprint. Blueprints. Schematic of 4. When I installed that system, I was worried about power outages. The camera in the vent was battery-powered. Yes, but it transmitted data to a local hub for cloud backup. But the cloud upload was slow. If the internet went down, the data needed a place to sit, a buffer. I had built a redundancy. I tried to move my hand. I needed to signal them. I tapped my finger against the plastic rail of the bed. Tap, tap, tap. She is trying to tell us something, Pierce said. Emerson? What is it? I could not form the words. My throat was too dry. The tube too intrusive. The camera, Lila was saying to herself on the other end. It is a Model X5, high-end. Miller, check the wiring. There is a lead coming off the back of the battery pack. It goes into the wall. Tracing it, Miller said. It runs up, inside the stud bay. Looks like it goes to the second floor, or higher. The attic, I screamed it in my head. The attic, the humidity control box. The attic, Lila said. She was good. She was very good. Miller, bring the ladder. If this system is hardwired, there might be a physical backup drive, a DVR, or a black box. I listened to the sounds of them dragging the ladder down from the garage ceiling. I heard the heavy thud of the attic hatch opening in the hallway ceiling. It is hot up here, Lila's voice came through, slightly muffled now. Insulation is thick. Okay, I see the ductwork, following the line. There, I held my breath. I see a gray metal box, Lila said. Mounted to the rafter, it looks like a junction box for the HVAC, but it has a tamper seal. Emerson, is this it? Is this the backup? Pierce looked at me. I blinked once. Yes. She says yes, Pierce relayed. Okay, Lila said. Approaching the box. The dust is disturbed here. There are footprints in the fiberglass insulation. Fresh ones. My stomach dropped. No, not there too. He could not have known about the attic. I never told him about the attic. That was purely structural. That was hidden behind a false panel I designed to look like a return airplanum. The panel is off, Lila said. Her voice was flat, devoid of hope. The screws are on the floor. What is inside? Pierce asked. Nothing, Lila said. Just a cut wire. She described it, and I could see it. The clean copper end of the Cat 6 cable, snipped with precision wire cutters. The empty bracket where the solid-state drive should have been. He took the drive, Lila said. He did not wipe this one. He took the physical unit, probably smashed it, and threw it in the river on his way out. How? Pierce asked, slamming his hand on the table. How did he know? The vent? Maybe. But a hidden drive in the attic inside a fake HVAC panel? That is not something you guess. That is not something you stumble upon. No, Lila said. It is not. There was a long silence on the line. I felt the tears finally spill over, hot and stinging, running down my temples into my hair. I had built a fortress of redundancy, and they had dismantled it brick by brick. Doctor, Lila said, and her voice was different. It was darker, dangerous. Ask Emerson a question for me, a very specific question. Go ahead, Pierce said. Emerson, Lila said clearly. Did you ever show Gavin the blueprints? Not the renovation sketches, the full mechanical schematics, the ones that show every wire, every sensor, every hidden panel in the house. I closed my eyes. I remembered. It was 3 months ago. Gavin had pretended to be interested in my work. He had asked to see my portfolio. He wanted to see how I handled complex residential integration. I was flattered. I was stupid. I had opened the digital files. I had walked him through the layers. I had shown him the ghost systems I designed for security. I blinked once. She did, Pierce said quietly. That is it then, Lila said. We are not dealing with a thief, and we are not dealing with a lucky amateur. We are dealing with someone who studied the target. So we have nothing, Pierce said, defeated. The card is blank. The drive is gone. We have a video of Brielle at the hospital, but that only proves she is unethical, not a murderer, without the footage from the house. We cannot prove the fall was not an accident. We do not have nothing, Lila corrected him. We have a profile. We know he is thorough. We know he is arrogant. And we know he thinks he has won. Lila paused. I could hear her stepping down the ladder, the creak of the wood under her weight. He made one mistake, Lila said. He was too perfect. He cleaned the house too well. He wiped the card too completely. If he was just a burglar, he would have taken the TV. If he was just a panic-stricken boyfriend, he would have smashed the camera, but he surgically removed the evidence. That proves premeditation. But we cannot prove it was him in the house, Pierce argued. Mrs. Gable only saw a silhouette. True, Lila said, but he had to get here. He had to drive here, and he had to leave. The license plate? Maybe, Lila said. But I am betting he swapped plates, or parked down the block. No, I am thinking about something else. What? The house, Lila said. Emerson, you designed this house to be smart, right? You have sensors for humidity, for temperature, for airflow? I blinked. Yes. Does the attic box, the one he opened, does it have a tamper switch? Lila asked. Does it log when it is opened? I thought about the specs. The box was a standard NEMA enclosure, but I had wired it into the home automation system. If the circuit was broken, if the lid was removed, I blinked rapidly. Yes, yes, yes. I thought so, Lila said. I am looking at the cut wire. He cut the data cable, but he didn't cut the power to the sensor loop until after he opened the box. The system would have sent a fault signal to the cloud the second that lid popped. But you said the card was wiped, Pierce said. And the drive is gone. The video is gone, Lila said. But the system log, the text file that records Zone 4 enclosure opened. That is a tiny packet of data. It doesn't need high bandwidth. It pings the server instantly. Lila's voice rose with excitement. If we can access your cloud account, we can get the exact timestamp of when he opened that box, down to the second. So we know when he was there, Pierce said. So what? We still don't have his face. We don't need his face yet, Lila said. We need his phone. His phone? If I have a timestamp accurate to the second, Lila explained, I can subpoena the cell tower dumps for this entire sector. I can look for a device that pinged the tower nearest this house at that exact second. And if Gavin Holt's phone was even turned on, even in his pocket, he would be placed at the scene, Pierce finished. Bingo, Lila said. He thinks he erased the story. But he forgot that the house itself is a witness. You can cut the tongue out, but the heart is still beating. Lila's voice turned steel hard. Doctor, keep her safe. I'm going to get a warrant for the tower data. And then I'm going to pay Mr. Holt a visit. He likes to play architect? Let's see how he likes it when I deconstruct his alibi. The line went dead. I stared at the black phone. The despair was still there, heavy and suffocating. But a tiny ember of hope had been fanned back to life. Gavin had studied my blueprints, but he had only looked at the lines on the paper. He didn't understand the philosophy. He didn't understand that a good building is never just one thing. It is a web of connections. He had cut the wire, but he had tripped the alarm, and now, the police were not just looking for a ghost. They were looking for a signal. The law is a machine, and machines run on fuel. My sister had plenty of fuel. She had the trust fund she was trying to steal. And she had a lawyer named Sterling who charged $600 an hour to dismantle the truth. I learned that Brielle was free the next morning. Detective Lila Grant did not come into the room to tell me. She stood in the doorway. Her shoulders slumped in a way that told me everything before she even opened her mouth. She did not cross the threshold, as if the failure she was carrying was contagious, and she did not want to infect me with it. They released her, Lila said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the sharp, hunting edge it had yesterday. The district attorney refused to press charges based on the hospital incident alone. They are calling it a misunderstanding. They are saying she was a distressed family member acting out of grief, not malice, without the video from the house, without the proof of premeditation. It is just your word against hers, and right now, her word is very loud. I lay there, the ventilator hissing its rhythmic mockery. Hiss. Click. You lose. It was not just that she was free. It was what she did with her freedom. Brielle did not go into hiding. She did not lawyer up and stay silent. She went on the offensive. She turned the camera on herself. Nurse Mara Collins showed me. It was late afternoon. The sun was slanting through the blinds, cutting the room into strips of light and shadow. Mara came in, her face flushed with anger, holding her personal phone. You need to see this, Mara said. Doctor, Pierce said I should not upset you, but you need to know what you are fighting. Ignorance is not protection. Emerson. She held the phone up to my line of sight. It was a live stream. The interface was familiar, one of the major social platforms where tragedy is consumed as entertainment. Brielle was sitting in her kitchen, my kitchen. The lighting was perfect, soft and golden, likely a filter. She was wearing a simple gray sweater. No jewelry. Her hair pulled back in a loose, messy bun. She looked exhausted. She looked fragile. She looked like a saint who had been dragged through hell. There were 40,000 people watching. Hey guys, Brielle whispered into the camera. She sniffled, wiping a non-existent tear from her cheek. I needed to come on here and clear the air. There are so many rumors, so many awful things being said. She took a sip from a mug of tea, holding it with both hands to show how much she was trembling. My sister, Emerson. She has been struggling for a long time, Brielle said. She lowered her eyes. We tried to keep it private. We wanted to protect her dignity, but after the accident, after the fall, her mind just snapped. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the room temperature. She was rewriting me. She has been dealing with severe depression and paranoia for years, Brielle continued, her voice gaining a confident, storytelling rhythm. Since our parents died, she has not been herself. She became obsessed with conspiracies. She thought people were watching her. She thought I was trying to hurt her. It broke my heart to watch her deteriorate. The comments on the side of the screen were flying by so fast they were a blur. Stay strong. Brielle, mental health is so real. Sending prayers. I am so sorry you have to go through this. Your sister is lucky to have you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle her. I was the sane one. I was the one who managed the money. I was the one who built buildings that stood up to hurricanes. She was the chaos agent, but she had the microphone, and I had a tube in my throat. The fall was an accident, Brielle said. looking directly into the lens with wide, earnest eyes. But the doctors say the trauma caused a psychotic break. When she woke up, she started saying crazy things, accusing me, accusing the doctors. It is just the brain injury talking. But the police, they have to investigate every wild claim. It is just protocol. But it hurts. It hurts so much to have the person you love most look at you with hatred because their brain is broken. She buried her face in her hands. The number of viewers ticked up. 45,000. This was not a random outburst. This was a script. The pacing, the keywords, the deflection. She was planting the seeds of reasonable doubt in the court of public opinion before the real court even opened a file. If I testified later, the jury would already have this narrative in their heads. Emerson is the crazy one. Brielle is the victim. Mara pulled the phone away. Her hand was shaking. She is good, Mara said, her voice dripping with disgust. She is really, really good. But the assault did not stop at social media. It bled into the one thing I had left, my name. 2 hours later, Dr. Pierce came in. He looked tired. He was holding a tablet, and he did not look me in the eye immediately. Emerson, he said, I had a call from the administration, and I received an email that was forwarded to me by the ethics board. He tapped the screen and held it up. It was an email sent to the partners at North Shore Design Collective, my firm, my partners. The subject line read, Urgent safety concern regarding senior architect Emerson Kennedy. To whom it may concern. It is with a heavy heart that I must bring to your attention the unstable mental condition of your employee, Emerson Kennedy, while she is currently hospitalized. It has come to light that her erratic behavior prior to the accident was not due to stress, but undiagnosed psychosis. She has been making violent threats against family members and medical staff, given that she is responsible for the structural integrity of public buildings. We feel it is a liability for her to remain on any active projects. We urge you to review her recent work for safety flaws caused by her cognitive decline. The email was anonymous, signed only a concerned citizen, but the syntax was familiar. It was not Brielle's voice. Brielle used emotional language. This was cold, corporate, and litigious. This was Gavin. Gavin was destroying my career. He knew that if he painted me as incompetent and unstable, nothing I said about the warehouse would matter. Of course she thinks the railing was sabotaged. They would say, she is paranoid. She probably loosened it herself. Doctor, Pierce saw the panic in my eyes. I already spoke to your senior partner. David, Pierce said gently. He called to check on you. I told him that your cognitive functions are intact. I told him this is a malicious smear campaign. I blinked. Thank you, but David is in a tough spot. Emerson, Pierce admitted. The board is spooked. Liability insurance is a nightmare in your industry. They are putting you on administrative leave, indefinite, until this is cleared up. I closed my eyes. I felt a tear slide down my temple. I had lost my parents. I had lost my freedom. Now I had lost my work. They were stripping me down to the studs, leaving nothing but a shell. But the enemy was not satisfied with digital warfare. They wanted to verify the kill. It happened at 7 in the evening. The shift change. The hospital was busy. The hallways filled with visitors and staff. A woman appeared at the nurse's station. She was not Brielle. She was older, nondescript, wearing a generic floral blouse and carrying a cheap bouquet of carnations. She looked like a church lady, harmless and sweet. I heard the commotion from my room because Mara had left the door slightly ajar to keep an eye on me. I am just a friend from her book club. The woman's voice drifted in. She sounded sweet, sugary. I just wanted to drop these off and say a little prayer. I will not stay long. Just a peek. I did not have a book club. Mara's voice cut across the sweetness like a knife. Ms. Kennedy is not accepting visitors. Mara said, Oh, I know, the woman persisted, but her sister said it would be okay. Brielle said she would love to see a friendly face. Her sister is not the attending physician, Mara snapped, and her sister is currently banned from this floor. Who are you really? I am just a friend, the woman said, her voice hardening slightly. Why are you being so difficult? I just want to see if she is awake. That was it. See if she is awake. They needed to know how much I had recovered. Brielle's performance on the live stream relied on me being a vegetable or a raving lunatic. If I was lucid, if I was communicating, their narrative was in danger. They sent a scout to check the perimeter. "Security!" Mara yelled. I heard the woman gasp. I heard the scuffle of feet. The woman did not argue. She ran. She dropped the flowers and bolted for the elevators. Mara came into my room a moment later, kicking the fallen bouquet away from the door as if it were a bomb. "They are testing the fence," Mara said, her chest heaving. She checked my vitals, her hands gentle but firm. "They want to know if you can talk yet." I looked at her. I realized then that I was not a patient anymore. I was a witness in protective custody. The hospital room was a bunker. Detective Lila Grant returned an hour later. She looked more frustrated than before. She pulled a chair up to the bed and sat down heavily. The woman was a hired TaskRabbit. Lila said, "We pulled her plates." She was paid $500 via a cash app to deliver flowers and record a video of the patient. She did not know who hired her. The account was a burner. Lila rubbed her face with her hands. "And Gavin Holt is a ghost," she continued. "We have an APB out, but he is gone. His apartment is cleaned out, but his digital footprint is active." She pulled out her notebook. We tracked some financial movements. In the last 6 hours, 3 offshore accounts linked to shell companies, the same ones from that fake resort brochure you found, have been drained. We are talking about liquidating assets. But here is the kicker. He is not just taking his money, he is draining Brielle's accounts too. I blinked. What? He has her passwords. Lila said, or she gave them to him. He made a transfer of $50,000 from her personal savings this morning, then another transfer of $20,000 from a joint credit line. He is cashing her out. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat, choking me. Brielle thought they were partners. She thought they were Bonnie and Clyde. She did not realize that to a man like Gavin, she was just another mark. He was using her to distract the police, using her to muddy the waters with her live stream. While he packed his bags with her money, he is leaving her holding the bag, Lila said, and she is too stupid, or too love-blind, to see it. She is out there destroying your reputation, thinking she is saving their future, and he is buying a one-way ticket to a non-extradition country. Lila leaned forward, her expression serious. But Emerson, this leaves us in a bad spot. If Gavin disappears, we lose the link to the house, we lose the testimony about the railing, and with the SD card wiped and the attic drive gone, the D.A. is getting cold feet. Reasonable doubt, she whispered. That is what they are afraid of. A defense attorney will stand up and say you are a brain-damaged woman with a grudge, that your sister is a grieving saint, and that Gavin was just a boyfriend who got scared of the drama. Without hard data, we might not get a conviction. We might not even get a trial. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Is there anything else? Any other backup? Any other camera? I searched my mind. I walked through the mental blueprint of my house, the vent, the attic, the server. No, that was it. I had been thorough. But Gavin had been more thorough. He had the keys. He had the codes. He had the map. I felt a surge of despair. But then, it shifted. It curdled into something hotter, darker. I looked at the phone on the table. The screen was dark. But I knew Brielle was out there, broadcasting her lies. I knew Gavin was out there, counting my family's money. They thought they had won because they took my voice. They thought that because I could not speak, I could not fight. But they forgot one thing. I was an architect. I did not just build things. I designed systems. I understood leverage. I understood how to make a structure collapse by removing a single, critical pin. Brielle was the pin. She was the weak link. She was loud, emotional, and currently believing she was the hero of her own tragedy. And she was being robbed blind by the man she was protecting. I did not need to find the evidence. I needed to make the evidence come to me. I looked at Lila. I focused all my energy on my eyes. I made them hard. I made them burn. I tapped the rail. Tap, tap, tap. "What is it?" Lila asked. I looked at the tablet. "Doctor," Pierce had left on the table, the one with the email. I looked at it, then at Lila. "You want the tablet?" Lila asked. I blinked. Yes. She held it up. I could not type. My hands were still too weak to hold a stylus. But I could look. I signaled for her to open the keyboard. I signaled for her to go to the text-to-speech app. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of agonizing blinks, row by row, letter by letter, LETHERIN. Lila stared at the screen. "Letter in?" I blinked. "Yes. You want us to let Brielle in here?" Lila asked, her voice rising in disbelief. "She tried to kill you. She is slandering you to the whole world. I-K-N-O-W. I blinked the next words out, faster this time, fueled by the rage that was keeping my heart beating. S-H-E-D-O-E-S. N-O-W-A-B-O-U-T-T-H-E-M-O-N-E. We. Lila stopped. She looked at the words. She looked at me. The realization dawned on her face. "You want to tell her?" Lila whispered. "You want to tell her Gavin is stealing from her?" I blinked. "No." I spelled out the next word. B-A-I-T. I did not want to save my sister. I wanted to break her. I wanted to use her greed, her jealousy, and her fear against her. If she knew Gavin was betraying her, she would not turn herself in. She would panic. She would try to stop him. And when thieves start fighting over the loot, they get sloppy. They make mistakes. I was done playing defense. I was done waiting for the police to find a ghost. I looked at Lila, and for the first time since I woke up, I felt a smile spreading inside me, even if my lips could not form it. Givemymyphone. It was time to go live. The room had changed. It was no longer a place of healing. It was a command center. The heart monitor still beeped, and the ventilator still hissed. But the energy had shifted from survival to strategy. I was done reacting to Brielle's chaos. It was time to introduce her to the concept of structural failure. Kendra Shaw walked in like a blade sheathed in Armani. I had known Kendra for 5 years. We had worked together on zoning disputes for my firm. She was not a warm person. She did not bring flowers. She brought injunctions. She sat down next to my bed, opened her laptop, and looked at me with eyes that assessed the situation not with pity, but with calculation. "I have the temporary restraining order," Kendra said, her voice crisp. "It bars Brielle Kennedy from coming within 100 yards of you, your home, or your assets. But a piece of paper is not going to stop her. Emerson, we know that. It is just a tripwire. We need to make her trigger it." I tapped the screen of the tablet Lila had left me. My text-to-speech app spoke in its mechanical, genderless voice. "Freeze, the accounts," Kendra nodded. "Way ahead of you. I filed an emergency motion with the probate court this morning. We are freezing the trust distributions pending a competency hearing. For her, not you." I cited her erratic public behavior and the suspicious transfers Detective Grant found. "Brielle is going to go to the ATM this afternoon and find out she cannot buy a latte, let alone a lawyer." That was the first step. Cut off the fuel. But I needed more than just a stalemate. I needed a checkmate. "Doctor." Pierce and Nurse Mara Collins entered the room. They looked like conspirators. Pierce was holding a thick stack of printouts. "We did the audit you asked for," Pierce said, locking the door behind him. "We pulled the access logs for your electronic medical record. Every keystroke, every view, every print command." He spread the papers out on the rolling table. It looked like a timeline of a digital invasion. "Here," Pierce pointed to a highlighted line. 7 o'clock in the morning on the day of the incident. This is 2 hours before Brielle arrived physically. "User ID?" Kendra asked, leaning in. That is the strange part, Mara said. The login came from a terminal in the billing department. The user ID belongs to a temp worker who hasn't worked here in 3 months. His credentials should have been revoked, but they were reactivated manually at 6:45. Gavin, I typed. The machine spoke the name. It fits, Lila said from the corner, where she had been quietly listening. He knows systems. He fished a dormant credential. Look at what they viewed, Pierce said, his finger trembling slightly. They didn't just look at your vitals. They uploaded a file, a PDF labeled Consensus Addendum. What is that? Kendra asked. It is a form we rarely use, Pierce explained. It is for when the entire medical team and the family agree that further treatment is futile. It is supposed to be a formality to speed up the paperwork for organ donation or hospice. But here's the thing. I never signed it. Mara never signed it. But in the system, it shows digital signatures for both of us. Forgery, Kendra stated. Electronic fraud. And the timing, Mara added. Tapping the paper. Look at the timestamp. 7:15 in the morning. Do you know what happens at 7:15? I blinked. Shift change. Shift change, Mara said, answering for me. The night crew is leaving. The day crew is arriving. It is the most chaotic 15 minutes of the day. Nurses are handing off charts. Doctors are rounding. If you slip a document into the digital queue then, nobody notices it until it is too late. They tried to automate my murder, I typed. Exactly, Pierce said grimly. They uploaded a document saying we all agreed to pull the plug, hoping that when Brielle arrived with the physical demand, the system would already be green-lit. They wanted the computer to tell me it was okay to let you die. It was brilliant. It was cold. And it was exactly the kind of efficiency Gavin prided himself on. He did not like messy confrontations. He liked checkboxes. This is good, Kendra said. This proves intent to defraud. But it is technical. Juries get bored with IP addresses and timestamps. We need something visceral. We need to catch them in a lie that a 5-year-old could understand. We need the money trail, I typed. Gavin is greedy. Lila stepped forward. I have been tracking him. He is ghosting, but he is not gone. He is moving money around, trying to wash it. He thinks he is clear because he wiped the house. He thinks the only loose end is you. Emerson. He doesn't know we know he is robbing Brielle. Use Hannah, I typed. Hannah Briggs was my oldest friend. She was not an architect. She was a real estate shark. She could sell ice to a polar bear and make him thank her for the bargain. She had been texting me nonstop since I woke up, asking what she could do. What is the play? Lila asked. I spent 10 minutes typing out the instructions. It was a simple plan, based on a simple truth. Criminals in a hurry make bad deals. An hour later, Hannah was sitting in her car, parked 2 blocks away from my family home. She was on a burner phone. She dialed the number of a private, off-market listing agent, a shady character we knew Gavin had used before for his shell companies. Lila had the call on speaker in the hospital room so we could hear. Yeah, the agent answered. This is Hannah, she said, her voice brisk and professional. I heard through the grapevine that the Kennedy property on Bayview might be available, quietly. It is not listed, the agent said, but he did not hang up. I know, Hannah said. That is why I'm calling. I have a client, cash buyer, foreign investor. He does not care about inspections. He loves the historic zoning. He is willing to go 20% over market value, but he needs to close in 48 hours. He is flying out on Friday. Silence on the other end. I could hear the agent doing the math. 20% over market value on a multi-million-dollar estate was a commission that would buy a new Porsche. Cash? The agent asked. Wire transfer ready to go. Hannah lied smoothly. But there is a catch. My client is old school. He wants the original deed and the inheritance transfer papers. He wants to see the physical wet signatures. He does not trust digital copies. Let me make a call, the agent said. He hung up. We waited. The tension in the ICU room was thick. Brielle was technically the owner of the house if I was incapacitated, but she could not sell it without court approval. Unless she forged my signature or used the fraudulent power of attorney she still thought was valid. 10 minutes later, the agent called back. "You have a deal," the agent said, "but my seller cannot meet you. He is out of town. He is sending a proxy with the documents." "Who is the seller?" Hannah asked innocently. "Ms. Kennedy?" "No," the agent said. "Mr. Holt. He is acting as the asset manager." Lila slammed her hand on the table. A silent cheer. "Okay," Hannah said. "Where and when?" "Tomorrow, noon, the coffee shop on 4th and Main. Bring the proof of funds." Hannah hung up. "He bit," Lila said, a savage grin spreading across her face. "Gavin is trying to sell your house out from under Brielle while she is busy playing the victim on the internet. He is going to use the forged papers to transfer the title to one of his shells, then sell it to your buyer and vanish with the cash." "And Brielle gets nothing," Kendra said. "She loses the house. She loses the trust. She loses the boyfriend." "We catch the proxy tomorrow," Lila said. "We flip him. We get him to give up Gavin's location. But that doesn't help us with Brielle. She can claim she knew nothing about the sale. She can play the victim again." "Oh, my terrible boyfriend tricked me." "No," I typed. "The trust." Kendra pulled a folder from her briefcase. "Emerson is right. I found something in the Kennedy Family Trust bylaws. Your parents were very specific. Emerson, they knew Brielle was volatile. There is a clause on page 42, the bad actor clause." She read it aloud. "In the event that any beneficiary is found by a court of law to have acted with malice, violence, or gross negligence resulting in harm to the trustee, or attempts to circumvent the legal structure of the trust through fraud, their interest in the trust shall be immediately and permanently forfeited. Their portion of the estate shall be donated to the designated charities." "It is the nuclear option," Kendra said. "If we prove Brielle tried to kill you, or even that she knowingly used forged documents to rush your death, she does not just go to jail. She leaves jail destitute. The one thing she cares about more than her freedom is that money." "She knows," I typed. "That is why she rushed." It all made sense. Brielle knew about the clause. She knew that if I simply refused to give her money, she was stuck. But if I died naturally or by accident, she inherited everything. But if there was an investigation, if there was a fight, she risked triggering the clause. That was why she was so desperate in the ICU. She needed me dead before I could talk. But she also needed it to look like a medical decision. If she pulled the plug herself, it was murder. And she lost the money. If the doctor pulled the plug because of medical consensus, she was just the grieving sister, and the check cleared. "We need the link," Pierce said. "We have the logs showing the file was uploaded. We have the fake signature, but Brielle can say Gavin did that without her knowing. We need to prove she was an active participant in the timeline." "The phone," I typed. "In the hallway." I closed my eyes and went back to that moment. The sounds, the smell of antiseptic, the rustle of paper. I heard her. I heard her say, "Hurry up, before she wakes up fully." Wait, that wasn't right. My brain was translating. She spoke English. She said, "Hurry up, before she wakes fully." She was on the phone, in the hallway, just outside the glass door. "Doctor," I typed, "does the ICU have audio?" Pierce shook his head. "No, privacy laws. We have video cameras in the hallways, but they are silent. Only the security desk has audio, and that is down in the lobby." I felt a crushing weight of disappointment. I knew what she said. I heard it. But my hearing was not evidence. "Wait," Mara said. She was standing by the window, looking at the security camera dome in the ceiling of the hallway outside. The hallway camera, it was upgraded last month, remember? Administration wanted aggression monitoring because of that incident with the drunk patient in room 6. Pierce looked at her. I thought they just put in higher resolution lenses. No, Mara said, her eyes widening. The sales rep. He told me the new omnidirectional cameras have a aggression trigger. If the decibel level goes above a certain point, like a scream or a shout, it automatically buffers the audio for 30 seconds before and after to capture the context of the incident. Brielle screamed, I typed. When I woke up, she did, Pierce confirmed. She started shouting about seizures. She yelled at me. She yelled at the guards. That was loud, Mara said. That definitely would have tripped the sensor. But she was whispering on the phone before she screamed, Kendra pointed out. The buffer, Lila said. Stepping forward, Mara said it buffers 30 seconds before the trigger. If she was on the phone right outside the door, and then she burst in and screamed, the system might have caught the whisper in the preamble. Where is that data? Lila asked. It is on the local server, Mara said. In the security office, but it overwrites every 7 days. Today is day. She checked her watch. Day 5, Pierce said. We still have it. Not for long, Lila said, grabbing her radio. If Gavin has a back door into the admin system, he has a back door into security. If he realizes we are looking for audio, he will wipe it, I typed. Just like the house. I am going down there, Lila said. I am not calling. I am not radioing. I am walking down there and I am pulling that hard drive physically out of the rack. Pierce, you come with me. I need a medical witness to certify the chain of custody. What about Emerson? Pierce asked. I will stay, Kendra said. She opened her briefcase and placed a heavy metal object on the table. It was not a stapler. It was a stun gun. Let her try to come in here. I am fine, I typed. Go, get the voice. Lila and Pierce ran out. I lay back against the pillow. The pieces were moving. The trap was set for Gavin with the house. The trap was set for Brielle with the money. And now, the hunters were racing to retrieve the echo of her own voice that would condemn her. I looked at the ceiling. I imagined Gavin in his hideout, thinking he was the architect of this situation. He thought he was playing chess. He did not realize that I had already locked the doors and set the building on fire. Brielle wanted to be the executor of my estate? Fine, I was about to execute her future. The emergency hearing was not held in a mahogany-paneled courtroom with high ceilings and a gallery full of spectators. It took place on a 24-inch high-definition monitor bolted to the wall at the foot of my ICU bed. The Honorable Judge Marcus Thorne presided over the proceedings from his chambers. A man with a face carved from granite and eyes that looked like they had seen every variety of human deceit. I was the exhibit. I was the evidence. They had propped me up with pillows, adjusting the angle of the bed so that the camera mounted on top of the monitor could capture my face. A court reporter sat in the corner of my hospital room, typing silently on a steno machine. Her presence a stark reminder that every gasp of the ventilator was now a matter of public record. My lawyer, Kendra Shaw, was on the screen, standing at the defense table in the courthouse, beside her. An empty chair represented my physical absence. On the other side of the aisle sat Brielle. She was wearing a navy blue suit that was modest, conservative, and likely cost more than a mid-sized sedan. She sat next to her lawyer, Arthur Sterling, a man who had made a career out of helping wealthy families bury their dirty laundry. Your Honor, Sterling began, his voice smooth and projecting clearly through the speakers in my room. We are here on an emergency motion to affirm Ms. Brielle Kennedy as the sole medical proxy for her sister, Emerson Kennedy. This is not a complex legal matter. It is a tragedy. My client is simply trying to fulfill the difficult duties of a guardian, he gestured to Brielle, who lowered her head, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Ms. Kennedy has presented a valid power of attorney, Sterling continued. The hospital has refused to honor it based on vague suspicions and the erratic behavior of a patient suffering from severe traumatic brain injury. We are asking the court to enforce the document and allow Ms. Kennedy to make the compassionate decision to cease aggressive life support measures that are merely prolonging the patient's suffering. I watched Brielle. She looked perfect. She looked like the grieving sister who was being bullied by a heartless medical bureaucracy. If I did not know she had signed my death warrant with a smile, I might have believed her. Kendra stood up. She did not use flowery language. She used a scalpel. "Your Honor," Kendra said, "we contest the validity of the power of attorney document. We have evidence suggesting the signature is forged. Furthermore, we contest the characterization of my client's condition. Emerson Kennedy is not a vegetable. She is conscious. She is communicative, and she has expressed a clear, unequivocal desire to live." "Objection," Sterling interrupted. "Communicative? The patient is intubated. She is heavily sedated. Any communication the hospital claims to have received is likely nothing more than involuntary reflex or the result of what we call ICU psychosis." Sterling picked up a thick folder. "We have an affidavit here from Dr. Aris Thorne, a leading neurologist we retained to review the case files. Dr. Thorne states that patients with frontal lobe trauma often exhibit paranoia, delusions, and false memories. If Emerson believes her sister is trying to harm her, it is not a fact. It is a symptom." I felt a surge of rage so hot it almost warmed my frozen limbs. They were using my injury against me. They were turning my survival into a diagnosis. Paranoia. It was the perfect cage. If I screamed, I was crazy. If I stayed silent, I was compliant. Judge Thorne looked at the camera. He looked directly at me. "I have read the briefs," the judge said. His voice was deep, gravelly. "I want to hear from the attending physician. Dr. Pierce, you are sworn in?" Doctor. Pierce stepped into the frame of my room's camera. He stood next to my bed, looking tired but resolute. "I am, Your Honor." "Doctor, give me your medical assessment. Is the patient capable of making decisions, or is she, as the plaintiff suggests, in a state of psychosis?" Doctor. Pierce adjusted his glasses. He did not look at Brielle. He looked at the lens. "Your Honor, Emerson Kennedy has a Glasgow coma scale that has improved significantly in the last 48 hours, while she has motor deficits due to spinal shock. Her cognitive processing is intact. We have established a communication protocol using eye movements and a letter board. Her responses are coherent, context-appropriate, and consistent. She recalls specific details of her home, her finances, and the events leading up to her injury. Details that could be hallucinations, Sterling countered from the screen. Details that have been verified by police investigation, Pierce shot back, his voice hardening. She provided the exact location of a hidden item in her home. That is not a hallucination. That is memory. Sterling waved his hand dismissively. We are not here to litigate a police investigation that has yielded 0 charges. We are here to discuss medical authority. Doctor, isn't it true that you administered heavy doses of fentanyl and midazolam during the initial intubation? Isn't it true these drugs cause confusion? That was days ago, Pierce said. She is currently on a minimal sedation protocol. She is lucid. Lucid enough to understand that her sister loves her? Sterling asked. Or lucid enough to be manipulated by hospital staff who are afraid of a malpractice suit? Your Honor, Kendra cut in, this line of questioning is insulting, and it ignores the conduct of the plaintiff. I would like to submit into evidence the access logs from Ravenport Regional Medical Center's electronic record system. Kendra held up the spreadsheet we had printed yesterday. Exhibit C, Kendra said. These logs show that Brielle Kennedy, or someone using credentials she obtained, accessed Emerson's medical file at 7:15 in the morning on the day of the incident. They uploaded a fraudulent consensus addendum claiming the medical team agreed to withdraw life support. Doctor, Pierce never signed that document. Nurse Collins never signed it. Yet it appeared in the system 2 hours before Brielle arrived at the hospital demanding the ventilator be turned off. The judge leaned forward. His eyes narrowed. Is this true, Mr. Sterling? The judge asked. Did your client attempt to manipulate hospital records? Sterling did not flinch. He was a professional. My client is not a hacker, Your Honor. She has no idea how a hospital database works. If there was a file upload, it was likely a clerical error or a system glitch. We are distracting from the main issue. The issue is that Emerson is in pain. Every minute she is on that machine is torture. Brielle just wants to end her sister's pain. Brielle spoke then. It was a calculated move. She stood up, her hands trembling. "Your Honor," she said, her voice breaking. "May I speak?" "Briefly," the judge said. "I love my sister," Brielle said, tears streaming down her face. "I raised her after our parents died. I have protected her for 4 years. Do you think I want this? Do you think I want to say goodbye? But the doctors told me in the beginning that there was no hope. They said she would never walk again. They said she would be trapped in her own body. Emerson made me promise. She made me promise years ago that I would never let her live like a vegetable. I am just trying to keep my promise." She looked at the camera, at me, with eyes that pleaded for forgiveness while promising murder. "Please," Brielle sobbed. Let her go. She is suffering. We have to do this now. She cannot wake up in time to be herself again." Kendra caught it. I caught it. The judge caught it. "In time?" the judge asked. "In time for what? Ms. Kennedy?" Brielle froze. For a fraction of a second, the panic flared in her eyes. She realized she had slipped. She was thinking about the money. She was thinking about the clause in the trust. She was thinking about Gavin's plane ticket. "In time, to recover any quality of life," Sterling interjected smoothly, covering for his client. "Medical literature suggests that the longer a patient remains in this state, the lower the chances of meaningful recovery." The judge did not look convinced. He looked at the screen where I lay. "Doctor, Pierce," the judge said, "you say the patient can communicate?" "Yes, Your Honor." "I want to see it," the judge said. "I want to hear from Emerson Kennedy, directly." Sterling stood up. "Objection. The patient is mute. This is highly irregular. You cannot cross-examine a person who cannot speak." "I am not cross-examining her," the judge said. "I am asking her who she wants to hold her life in their hands." Overruled. "Doctor, Pierce, facilitate the communication." The room went silent. "Doctor." Pierce moved the camera closer to my face. He held up a clear plastic board with the alphabet printed on it in bold, black letters. "Emerson," Pierce said softly, "the judge needs to know. Do you want Brielle to make medical decisions for you?" I stared at the board. My eyes burned. My body felt like lead, but my mind was a diamond. Sharp, hard, unbreakable. I waited for Pierce to scan his finger across the rows. Row 1, a B, C, D, E. Row 2, F, G, H, I, J. I blinked when he hit I. "I," Pierce said. He started again. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, S, T. I blinked at D. "D," Pierce said. "O, O, space, N, O, T. "Not," Pierce read aloud. The courtroom was silent. Even Sterling had stopped shuffling his papers. Brielle was staring at the screen, her face draining of color. "A, U, T, H, O, R, I, Z, E. "Authorize," Pierce said. "B, R, I, E, L, L, E. "Brielle," Pierce concluded. The sentence hung in the air, mediated by technology but fueled by pure will. I do not authorize Brielle. It was not a hallucination. It was not a reflex. It was a rejection. "She is spelling words," Brielle shrieked. "You are cueing her. You are moving your finger to tell her when to blink." "Ms. Kennedy, sit down," the judge barked. "It is a trick," Brielle yelled. "She is brain dead. This is a puppet show." "I said sit down," the judge roared. The sound distorted slightly over the speakers. I was not done. I had one more thing to say. I focused on Pierce. I moved my eyes to the board again. "She wants to say more," Pierce said. He scanned the rows. M, Y. "My," Pierce said. S, I, S, T, E, R. "Sister," Pierce read. P, U, S, H-E-D, pushed, Pierce said. The word dropped into the silence like a stone into a deep well. M-E, me. My sister pushed me. The courtroom erupted. I could see Kendra standing up, pointing at Brielle. I could see Sterling trying to pull Brielle back into her chair. Brielle looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The mask of the grieving guardian had shattered completely. Judge Thorne slammed his gavel. Bang, bang, bang. "Order!" he shouted. "Order in this court!" The noise subsided, leaving a heavy, ringing silence. "The court acknowledges the statement of the witness," Judge Thorne said, his voice cold and terrifyingly calm. "Based on the direct communication from the patient, the motion to appoint Brielle Kennedy as medical proxy is denied with prejudice." He looked at Brielle. "Ms. Kennedy, your temporary guardianship is hereby revoked. A court-appointed guardian ad litem will be assigned to Emerson Kennedy immediately. Furthermore, I am ordering the district attorney's office to open an investigation into the origin of the power of attorney document submitted to this court. If it is found to be forged, Mr. Sterling, you will be facing a bar hearing, and your client will be facing felony fraud charges." Sterling looked pale. He began packing his briefcase immediately, distancing himself from the woman beside him. "This hearing is adjourned," the judge said. "And Ms. Kennedy, if you go near that hospital, I will have you arrested for contempt." The screen went black. In the hospital room, "Doctor." Pierce let out a long, shaky exhale. Nurse Mara squeezed my hand. "You did it," Mara whispered. "You told them." I closed my eyes. I was exhausted. The effort of spelling those words had drained every ounce of glucose from my brain, but I felt lighter. The legal shackle was broken. Brielle could not sign my life away anymore. But the war was not over. Detective Lila Grant, who had been monitoring the feed from the hallway, walked in. She did not look triumphant. She looked tense. "We got the ruling," Lila said. "But we missed the arrest. The judge didn't issue a bench warrant because the jurisdiction for the assault is still under investigation." Brielle walked out of that courtroom a free woman. "She is running," I typed on my tablet. "Not yet," Lila said. "I have a tail on her. Officer Miller is at the courthouse. He just radioed in." Lila pulled out her phone and played a recording that Miller had just sent her. It was audio captured from a long-range directional microphone as Brielle exited the courthouse doors. The sound of traffic was loud, wind distortion scratching at the speakers. But then, Brielle's voice cut through. She was not crying anymore. She was frantic. "Gavin, pick up! Pick up! You coward!" Silence. Then, she must have gotten his voicemail. "It is over," Brielle hissed into the phone. She talked. She told the judge I pushed her. "They are going to check the signature. We have to end this before the criminal trial starts. I am not going to prison alone. Do you hear me? You get the money, and you get me out of here. Tonight, or I swear to God, I will tell them where you buried the hard drive." Lila stopped the recording. "Where he buried the hard drive," Lila repeated. "She knows where the evidence is." I looked at the phone. Brielle was panicking. She was turning on Gavin. The alliance of greed was collapsing under the weight of fear. "She is going to him," Lila said. "She thinks he is going to save her. She does not know he is already selling the house out from under her." "Let them meet," I typed. "That is the plan," Lila said. "We are not arresting her yet. We are going to follow her. She is going to lead us right to Gavin, and when they are together, when they are trading the money for the evidence, that is when we drop the net." Lila looked at me. "Rest now. Emerson, you won the battle. Tonight, we win the war." I watched the sun dip below the horizon outside my window. The sky was turning a bruised purple. Somewhere out there, my sister was running through the gathering dark, chasing a man who had already left her behind. She thought she was fighting for her freedom. She did not realize she was just another loose end waiting to be cut. I closed my eyes and listened to the rhythm of the machine. Beep, beep, beep. It was no longer a countdown. It was a metronome keeping time for the final act. A criminal on the run is like a building with a cracked foundation. You do not need to push it over. You just need to wait for gravity to do its work. Gavin Holt was crumbling, and he was doing it in real time on a grainy surveillance feed that Detective Lila Grant was beaming to my bedside monitor. "We got him," Lila said. She was not smiling. She was adjusting the frequency on her radio, her eyes locked on the screen. "He made a mistake, a small one, a $300 mistake." I watched the screen. It showed a map of the Tri-County area. A red dot was pulsing in a town called Oak Creek, about 40 miles west of Ravenport. "He stopped at an ATM," Lila explained. "He thought he was being clever. He used a debit card linked to one of the shell companies. Not his personal account. He thought we had not unraveled the corporate veil yet. He did not know you gave us the map to his entire financial structure." "He is panicking," I typed. The mechanical voice was flat, but I felt a savage satisfaction. "He is desperate for cash," Lila agreed. "He is liquidating. That means he is ready to run. If he gets on a plane, we lose him. We need to close the net now." The plan was already in motion. Hannah Briggs was the steel trap, and the house on Bayview Drive was the cheese. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. at a roadside hotel off the interstate, a neutral ground that Gavin had insisted on. He was too paranoid to come back to the city, and too greedy to walk away from a cash offer. Lila switched the monitor feed. Now I was looking through a button camera lens. It was pinned to Hannah's blouse. The angle was slightly low, showing the formica table of a generic hotel conference room and the nervous tapping of Hannah's fingers on a manila envelope. "Testing audio," Hannah's voice came through, clear and steady. "1, 2, 3, can you hear me? Emerson?" I blinked. Lila spoke into her throat mic. "Loud and clear. Hannah, he is pulling into the lot. Black sedan. Rental plates. He is alone." I held my breath. The door to the conference room opened. Gavin Holt walked in. If I had not known it was him, I might not have recognized the man who stood in the doorway. The Gavin I knew was a creature of polish and precision. His hair was always gelled, his suits tailored, his smile practiced. This man looked like he had not slept in 3 days. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were rimmed with dark, bruised circles. He was sweating. Despite the aggressive air conditioning of the hotel, he did not say hello. He walked straight to the window, peered through the blinds, and then turned to Hannah. "Do you have the money?" Gavin asked. His voice was hoarse. "Hello to you too." "Gavin," Hannah said coolly. She did not flinch. She kept her hand on the envelope. "I have the proof of funds, a cashier's check for $2.5 million. Verifiable." Gavin's eyes locked onto the envelope. He licked his lips. It was a predatory, desperate movement. "Give it to me," he said, reaching out. Hannah pulled the envelope back. "Not so fast. My client is buying a house, not a promise. Where is the deed? And where is the transfer authority?" Gavin slammed a briefcase onto the table. He fumbled with the latches. "It is all here. The deed, the title transfer. I signed it as the asset manager." Hannah opened the folder he pushed toward her. She scanned the pages slowly, deliberately dragging out the silence. "This is signed by you," Hannah said, looking up. "But the title is held by the Kennedy Family Trust. Brielle is the beneficiary. I need her signature on the release waiver. My client knows about the trouble with the sister. We do not want Brielle coming back in 6 months claiming she did not authorize the sale." Gavin laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. "Brielle does what I tell her. She is a mess." "She needs this money more than I do." "That may be true," Hannah pressed. "But legally, she is the face of the estate. I need assurance. Is she on board? Or is she going to sue my client?" Gavin leaned over the table. The camera caught the wild, cornered look in his eyes. "Brielle will sign," Gavin hissed. "She will sign anything I put in front of her. Provided the ICU business isn't dragged out." Lila sat up straighter in the hospital room. "Gotcha," she whispered. "The ICU business?" Hannah asked innocently. You mean the accident? I mean the investigation, Gavin snapped. He looked around the empty room, lowering his voice. She is terrified the police are going to dig into the medical decisions. She wants to disappear. This money allows her to do that. You pay us. She signs, and we are both gone. Everyone wins. And Emerson? Hannah asked. What about her? Gavin's face twisted. Emerson is a vegetable. She does not matter. I heard she woke up, Hannah said. She was pushing him. She was walking a razor's edge. She woke up brain damaged, Gavin shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. She is drooling and blinking. She is not a threat. Look, do you want the house or not? Because I have another buyer lined up who does not ask so many questions. I want the house, Hannah said. But I do not want to lean on it. If Emerson recovers... She will not recover, Gavin yelled. He was losing control. The facade was gone. The damage was done. The ventilator paperwork should have been done days ago. If the hospital hadn't dragged their feet, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I closed my eyes. The ventilator paperwork should have been done. It was an admission. He was frustrated that the murder had been delayed by bureaucracy. Okay, Hannah said, feigning surrender. Calm down. I will make the transfer, but I need to verify the routing number. Just do it, Gavin demanded. Move in, Lila commanded into her radio. Take him down. Secure the electronics. I want his phone, his laptop, and that briefcase. On the screen, I saw the door behind Gavin burst open. Police! Hands on the table! Gavin spun around. The look on his face was not fear. It was total, shattering disbelief. He reached for his jacket pocket. Do not do it, a uniformed officer screamed. Hands on the table, now! Gavin froze. He looked at Hannah. Hannah just smiled. A cold, sharp smile that mirrored my own. My client sends her regards, Hannah said softly. Gavin was slammed against the table. The camera shook as the officers cuffed him. They dragged him out, shouting his Miranda rights. The screen went black as Hannah cut the feed. Lila stood up. She was already moving. I am going to the precinct. We have the recording. We have the confession on the intent to sell, but I need the map. The map? I typed. The digital map, Lila said. He mentioned the ventilator paperwork. He was too specific. He said it should have been done. That implies a schedule, a plan. 2 hours later, Lila returned. She was carrying a plastic evidence bag containing a laptop and a hard drive. She looked like a miner who had just struck a vein of gold. But the gold was radioactive. We got a warrant for his car, Lila said, setting the bag on the table. He had a go bag packed, passport, cash, and this laptop. She plugged the drive into her own secure tablet. He tried to encrypt it, Lila said. But Gavin is arrogant. He used a password related to his own genius. Architect. She clicked a folder. Here it is, Lila said. Folder name, ICU strategy. I leaned forward as much as the tubes allowed. It was not a video file. It was a collection of documents, Word files, PDFs, spreadsheets. Lila opened the first one. It was a timeline. Day 1, the fall. Ensure no witnesses. Day 2, sedation protocol. Push for fentanyl to increase confusion. Day 3, the letter. File power of attorney with medical records. Target shift change at 700 hours. Day 4, extubation. Site, quality of life. Use emotional leverage on doctor. Pierce. It was a script, a murder script. He had choreographed my death hour by hour. He wrote it down, doctor, Pierce whispered. Looking over Lila's shoulder, he looked sick. He actually wrote it down. He treated it like a project management chart, Lila said with disgust. Look at this column, risk assessment. Under Nurse Collins, he wrote, hostile, bypass if possible. There is no video, I typed. This is just a plan. It proves conspiracy, Lila said. It proves he and Brielle were coordinating. But you are right. A defense attorney could argue this is just Gavin's fantasy, that Brielle never saw it. She clicked another file. This one was named Asset Allocation. It showed the transfer of funds. It showed the plan to sell the house. But at the bottom, there was a note in red text. Note: backup server in Sector 4, Hallway B, has auto archive. Admin access required to purge audio buffer. Pending. Lila froze. Sector 4, Hallway B, Lila repeated. She looked at Dr. Pierce. Where is that? That is this hallway, Pierce said. The ICU corridor. He knew, Lila said. Her eyes widened. He knew about the audio buffer Mara told us about. The note says pending. That means he hasn't deleted it yet. He couldn't, Pierce realized. He needed admin access. He had the billing login, but he didn't have the security root access. He was trying to hack it. Lila grabbed her radio. Captain, she barked. I need IT forensics at the hospital immediately. We have a target. The local security server for the ICU. There is a file there that the suspect was trying to delete but failed. She turned to me. The look on her face was electric. He left a breadcrumb, Lila said. He was so obsessed with tracking his tasks that he documented his own failure. He couldn't wipe the audio of Brielle screaming because he didn't have the clearance level, so he made a note to come back and finish the job. The file is still there, I typed. If the note is right, Lila said, then the audio of Brielle whispering to him on the phone, the audio proving she was taking orders from him right outside your door, is sitting on a hard drive downstairs, waiting for us. Brielle denies everything, I typed. She says she was scared. She can deny it all she wants, Lila said, packing up the evidence. But if we match the timestamp on this strategy document with the timestamp of her phone call in the hallway, and the content of that audio, it connects the dots. It proves she wasn't a scared sister. It proves she was an actor following a script. Lila leaned in close to me. We are going to open that server. Emerson. And when we play that tape, your sister is not going to have a defense. She is going to have a sentence. The door opened. Officer Miller stuck his head in. Detective, Miller said, we have a problem. Brielle just posted bail for the restraining order violation. She is out. Does she know we have Gavin? Lila asked. No, Miller said. We kept it off the scanner. She thinks he is still loose. Good, Lila said grimly. Let her run. Let her think she has one last card to play. Because she is running toward a cliff, and we just removed the bridge. I looked at the strategy document on the screen one last time. Day 4. Extubation. They had treated my life like a demolition project. They had planned the implosion, but they forgot that even when a building falls, the foundation remembers where the walls used to be. I was the foundation, and I was about to bring the whole house down on top of them. The air in the Seabrook County Superior Court smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. It was the smell of judgment. I sat at the prosecution table in my wheelchair, my hands resting on the armrests, feeling the cold steel beneath my fingers. I was no longer the helpless patient trapped in a bed. I was the accuser. And today, I was the architect of my own justice. Brielle sat across the aisle. She looked immaculate. She was wearing a soft, cream-colored suit that suggested innocence and purity. Her hair was pulled back in a demure low bun. She did not look at me. She kept her eyes forward, her chin raised in a posture of misunderstood virtue. She was confident. And why shouldn't she be? Her lawyer had told her the same thing my detective had feared. There was no video of the fall. The SD card was wiped, and the attic drive was gone. All we had was the word of a woman recovering from a traumatic brain injury and a trail of circumstantial paperwork. The trial had been grueling. For 3 days, Brielle's defense attorney, a sharp-featured man named Mr. Sterling, had painted me as a drug-addled, paranoid hysteric. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Sterling said, pacing in front of the box. We are here because of a tragedy, yes, but the tragedy is not a crime. The tragedy is that Emerson Kennedy suffered a terrible fall that scrambled her perceptions. She was on fentanyl. She was on midazolam. These are powerful, mind-altering narcotics. When she woke up, she hallucinated a conspiracy because her brain could not process the reality of her accident. My client, Brielle, is a victim of her sister's delusion. I saw the jury nodding. They wanted to believe him. It is hard to believe a sister would kill her own blood for money. It is easier to believe the patient is confused. Brielle allowed herself a small, sad smile. She thought she had won. She thought the narrative was hers. Then Kendra Shaw stood up. Kendra did not pace. She did not wave her arms. She stood behind the podium with the stillness of a predator waiting for the wind to change. "Your Honor," Kendra said, her voice cutting through the hum of the room. The defense claims that Emerson Kennedy is an unreliable narrator. They claim that there is no objective truth to be found in the chaos of the ICU. But technology does not hallucinate, technology does not take drugs, and technology does not lie. Kendra turned to the bailiff. "The people call their final witness, but this witness is not a person. We request permission to play a digital forensic file recovered from the Sector 4 security server of Ravenport Regional Medical Center. This evidence was authenticated this morning by the State Cybercrimes Division." Brielle's head snapped up. The color drained from her face so fast, it looked like a light switch had been flipped. She looked at Mr. Sterling. Sterling looked confused. He stood up. "Objection," Sterling barked. "We have not seen this evidence. This is trial by ambush. The evidence was discovered 48 hours ago and immediately disclosed to the defense counsel's digital team," the judge said calmly, peering over his glasses. "If you did not check your secure inbox, Mr. Sterling, that is your negligence, not an ambush. Proceed. Ms. Shaw." The courtroom lights dimmed. A large screen dropped down from the ceiling. The video feed was grainy, shot from a high angle in the hospital hallway. It showed the door to my room, room 4. It showed the date and timestamp ticking by in the corner. On the screen, Brielle appeared. She was pacing. She was holding the folder, the one containing the forged power of attorney. She looked nothing like the saint sitting in the courtroom. On screen, she was jagged, frantic, her movements sharp and aggressive. "Doctor." Pierce appeared in the frame. The audio, boosted by the forensic team, hissed slightly before becoming clear. "She has pupil reactivity, Ms. Kennedy, doctor." Pierce's voice rang out in the silent courtroom. "She is fighting. We cannot just turn it off." "I have the papers." Brielle's voice on the recording was shrill. "I have the authority. Do it." "I need to consult the ethics board," Pierce said, walking away, out of frame, on screen. Brielle was left alone. She looked at the door to my room. She looked at the papers in her hand. Then, she pulled out her phone. This was the moment. This was the audio buffer that Gavin had failed to delete because he did not have root access. Brielle held the phone to her ear. The courtroom held its breath. "Pick up, Gavin," the recording whispered. It was low, but every syllable was distinct. Then, she spoke again. "He is stalling. The doctor is stalling. You need to call the legal department again." She paused, listening to the person on the other end. Then, she turned her back to the camera, shielding her mouth with her hand, but the omnidirectional microphone caught it all. "I do not care if it is risky," Brielle hissed. She moved her hand. I saw it. If she wakes up, she remembers the warehouse. She remembers the railing. You said the fall would kill her. Gavin, you said she would never speak again. A collective gasp swept through the gallery. One juror covered her mouth with her hand. "Just get the approval code," Brielle's recorded voice continued, cold and deadly. "I am going in there. I will make them pull the plug before she talks. If she wakes up, we lose the money. We lose everything. I am ending this today." The feed cut out. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. It was the silence of a truth so ugly, it sucked the oxygen out of the room. Then, chaos. "Lies!" Brielle screamed. She jumped up from her seat, knocking her chair over. "It is fake! It is AI! They made it up. That never happened. Sit down, Ms. Kennedy, the judge roared, banging his gavel. It is a deep fake, Brielle shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. She is an architect. She uses computers. She made it. The metadata was verified by the FBI, Kendra said calmly into the microphone, her voice overriding Brielle's hysteria. The checksum matches the hospital's internal server. That is your voice, Brielle, and that is your conspiracy. Brielle looked around wildly. She looked at the jury. They were looking at her with revulsion. She looked at Sterling. He was staring at his table, distancing himself from the blast radius. We have one more witness to provide context for that call, Kendra said. The people call Gavin Holt. The side door opened. Gavin shuffled in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He looked smaller than I remembered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who had realized he was the only rat trapped in the maze. Brielle froze. She stared at him. She had thought he was on the run. She did not know we had caught him at the hotel. Gavin took the stand. He did not look at Brielle. He looked at the prosecutor. Mr. Holt? Kendra asked. Did you receive a phone call from the defendant at 9:15 in the morning on the day in question? I did, Gavin said. His voice was flat. And what was the nature of that call? She was panicking, Gavin said. She told me Emerson was showing signs of consciousness. She told me to pressure the hospital administration to authorize the extubation immediately. She said we had to kill her before she could tell the police about the railing. You liar! Brielle screamed. You planned it. It was your idea. And who loosened the railing at the warehouse? Mr. Holt? Kendra asked, ignoring the outburst. I removed the bolts, Gavin said. But Brielle wiped the grease off afterward, and she was the one who waited 5 minutes to call 911. We timed it. She watched the timer on her phone while her sister bled out on the concrete. I closed my eyes. Hearing it confirmed was different than knowing it. It was a physical pain, a sharp stab in the heart. My sister, my own blood. She had watched a timer. No more questions, Kendra said. The verdict was a formality. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they came back, the foreman did not hesitate. Guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Attempted murder. Guilty. Fraud. Guilty. Brielle did not cry when the verdict was read. She just sat there, staring at nothing, her face a mask of shock. She could not believe that the world had not bent to her will. But I had one last piece of architecture to unveil. The sentencing hearing was set for immediately after the verdict, per the state's request due to the flight risk, before the judge passed sentence. Kendra approached the bench with a thick, sealed envelope. Your Honor, Kendra said, before you determine the financial restitution, there is a matter regarding the Kennedy Family Trust. The defendant believes that even if she goes to prison, the millions in the trust will be waiting for her upon release, or that she can use them to fund her appeals. Kendra turned to the gallery. She held up the envelope. It was yellowed with age. This is a sealed letter left by the parents of Emerson and Brielle Kennedy. It was lodged with the trust executor, to be opened only in the event of a criminal conviction of a beneficiary against a family member. Brielle's head snapped up. She had never known about this letter. Kendra broke the seal. The sound of tearing paper was loud in the quiet room. She unfolded the letter and began to read. To our daughters, we hope this letter never sees the light of day, but we know the weight of money can distort the soul. Brielle, we love you, but we know your anger. We know your jealousy. If you are reading this, it means you have let that darkness win. It means you have hurt your sister to take what you think is yours. Kendra paused. I felt tears streaming down my face. My parents, they had known. They had seen the cracks in the foundation years ago. Therefore, Kendra read, let it be known that any beneficiary who harms another to gain access to this trust is immediately and permanently disinherited. The entirety of the Kennedy estate, the funds, the properties, the future, shall be transferred to the victim. or if the victim is deceased, to the Ravenport Community Foundation, Brielle. You sought to take everything. By doing so, you have ensured you leave with nothing. Brielle stood up. She looked like she was choking. No, she whispered. No, you cannot do that. That is my money. I suffered for it. It is not your money, Judge Thorne said, his voice ringing with finality. It never was, and now, it never will be, Brielle Kennedy. I sentence you to 25 years to life in the state penitentiary. You will leave this courtroom in custody, and you will leave as a pauper. The bailiffs moved in. They handcuffed Brielle. She started screaming then, not about freedom, not about me. She screamed about the money. She screamed numbers. She screamed about the injustice of being poor. As they dragged her out the side door, she looked back at me one last time. There was no remorse in her eyes, only the terrifying, blank stare of a shark that had broken its teeth on steel. Gavin was sentenced next, 15 years. He took it in silence, knowing he had gambled and lost. I rolled my wheelchair out of the courthouse and into the late afternoon sun. The air tasted sweet. It tasted like oxygen that I was breathing on my own. Without a machine, without permission. Recovery was not a straight line. It was a spiral staircase. It took me 6 months to walk with a cane. It took a year to walk without one. I sold the house on Bayview Drive. I could not live there anymore. The memories were too loud, and the ghosts were too angry. I left Ravenport. I moved 3 states away, to a city where no one knew my name or my story. I used the trust fund, the money Brielle had killed for, to build something new. I started a small firm called Sanctuary Design. We specialize in high-security residential architecture for survivors of domestic violence and stalking. We build homes that look beautiful but function like fortresses. We design safe rooms that are invisible. We install redundant systems that cannot be cut. I also established the Kennedy Scholarship. It pays for the education of young architects who come from broken homes, giving them the tools to build their own foundations. I am 40 years old now. I have a slight limp when it rains. I have scars on my back from the fall, and a scar on my throat from the ventilator. But I am standing. Sometimes, late at night. I think about Brielle sitting in her cell. I wonder if she still counts the money she never got. I wonder if she realizes that she signed her own fate the moment she picked up that pen in the ICU. She tried to delete me. She tried to edit me out of the story. But she forgot the first rule of architecture. If you build on a lie, the collapse is inevitable. I am the structure that survived, and that is the best revenge of all. Thank you so much for listening to my story on Jane Revenge Stories. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let me know your country or city. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice served, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and smash the hype button to help this video reach more people. Stay safe, and remember to always check your foundations.